Welcome to day 2 of the BioStock Life Science Spring Summit. Here to kick things off is BioInvent, a biotech company developing antibodies for cancer therapy. To present the company is CEO Martin Welschof. Welcome, Martin. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And I will jump right into my presentation. So this is our forward-looking statement. Obviously, you will remember that we're listed in Stockholm on the OMX stock exchange. And I would start as usual with a short introduction to the company, so that there's a snapshot. So we're in the immuno-oncology space, based in Lund, roughly a little bit more than 100 people. We're a relatively integrated company, so we do target discovery, antibody discovery, production, as well as then, of course, clinical development. Now, our sweet spot is really to identify new mode of actions in the space of immuno-oncology and then translating them quickly into the clinic. In that sense, we currently have a portfolio of 5 programs running in the clinic, soon 6. And the platform that we have used to identify and develop those different treatment options has been already nicely validated through a number of collaborations. So we have more than 10 of such collaborations ongoing. The most recent one was actually with Exelixis, where we signed a deal last summer. But we also have antibodies at later stages with those collaborators. So we have antibodies in phase 1 and phase 2 with companies such as Mitsubishi, Daiichi, Takeda, and Bayer. We are listed in Stockholm, as I already mentioned, but we have a very strong institutional shareholder base from the US and Europe. And you see those names listed there. Our largest shareholder is Redmile, followed by Van Herk Investments, Forbion, HBM, Omega, AP4, Invus, Swedbank Robur, Handelsbanken, and AXA. And we have been quite active in fundraising during last year and the 2 years before. So we have a good bank account. So currently we have $150 million on our account, which gives us the runway based on our current plans until the end of 2025. So we're in the space of cancer therapeutics, and we really try to address a high unmet need. So everybody knows that immune checkpoint inhibitors such as Keytruda and others have become the standard of care for several cancer indications. And they're quite efficient, but still, there are around 80% of the patients that do not respond to those new treatments. And we're trying to address specifically that space. And one reason why we believe that there's still a high unmet need is because that the number of targets that are available are quite limited. And that's what we're trying to address with our platform that I would like to introduce you on this slide. It's our reverse screening tool called Function First. Compared to traditional ways of screening, you would normally use a target that you have identified by certain means, let's say genomics. And then you start the screening process and get some compounds and put them into preclinical and later into clinical development. We start the other way. So we actually start directly from patient material. So we have a very close collaboration with the local hospital in Lund, such that we receive fresh material on a regular basis and then identify antibodies from our large human combinatorial antibody library, binding specifically to those material of interest. And once we have specific binders identified, we characterize them regarding their function, which means you would test those antibodies in a number of animal models and would only select those that show strong therapeutic effects in a number of animal models, and then we identify the target. So the target identification for us comes at the end, and that's why we call it a reverse screening. And I think this is a very interesting platform because, number one, we screen directly on patient material, so it has to have clinical relevance. Number two, we characterize already during the screening process the function of those antibodies and would only focus on those that have therapeutic effects. And then we identify the target. So that means by the end of this platform, we have preclinically relevant and characterized antibodies that then go directly into clinical development. And as I've mentioned, so this platform has been actually used by a number of our collaboration partners and works very efficiently. And we used it to build the portfolio, which is outlined here on this slide. And I will just use this as a summary and then go briefly through the various programs specifically. You can see currently 5 programs in the clinic. Program number 6 is about to go into the clinic. We're concentrating around 3 different targets. One is Fc gamma R2b, which is the only inhibitory receptor of the innate immune system, so a very important target. Then it's TNF receptor 2, which is one of the new and upcoming checkpoints. And then we have our version of an anti-CTLA-4 antibody that we're developing in collaboration with Transgene. So you can see on the right-hand side a couple of names. So the first program, BI-1206, which is our lead, has been already partnered for China, Hong Kong, Macau, and Taiwan with CASI Pharmaceuticals. And then you can see that we also have Merck there a couple of times, but Merck doesn't have any rights. So those are just supply and collaboration agreements, and we get Keytruda, which is the #1 product of Merck, for free. And then you see the name Transgene. This is the 50-50 joint venture of the BT-001. So very briefly regarding the programs. So this is BI-1206. That we develop for non-Hodgkin lymphoma as well as for various solid cancers. There you can see here on the outline of the clinical trial. So we're focusing on patients that do not respond anymore to the standard of care. We have done the middle part, which is the dose escalation, and we have moved into dose expansion. And we have been actually quite successful already during the dose escalation part. So we had a lot of good response already at this early stage. So this is based on 15 patients only. We had 4 complete responses and a couple of partial responses and stable diseases. And very importantly, the complete responses are long-lasting, which means we have responses that are lasting for more than 2 years after the end of treatment, which I think is very astonishing and very exciting. We have also developed a sub-Q version for this antibody that is currently in dose escalation, and that data set should come out soon. So in summary, you can see here, it's a very compelling scientific rationale. It's first in class, and we have seen long-lasting complete responses, which is, I think, very encouraging for the compound in this specific indication, non-Hodgkin lymphoma. Then we have a second trial addressing solid tumors, and there we're addressing solid tumors of patients that have relapsed the standard of care, which is either anti-PD-1 or anti-PD-L1. Here we're a little bit more early, still in dose escalation, but also in this dose escalation process, we already have seen first encouraging signs of efficacy. We had 2 patients with strong partial responses. And here we are also enrolling soon the sub-Q version that we're currently testing in the non-Hodgkin lymphoma case. And we'll also update on the IV in the next couple of weeks. Then coming to our second anti-Fc gamma R2b, which is BI-1607. This is an antibody also directed against the same target, but with a different mode of action. We have started clinical development last summer in combination with trastuzumab, and that data set will come out during the second half of this year, which means the early stage dose escalation data. Then switching gears to TNF receptor 2. So I mentioned already in my summary slide, this is a very interesting target. Now, when we started this program, we were one of the few. Now there are several companies, including Novartis and BeiGene, also having programs around TNF receptor 2, but we are the ones that are most advanced. Few of our competitors are not even in the clinic yet. Some are, but at earlier stages. As you can see on the clinical trial design, we are developing this as a single agent as well as a combination with Keytruda. And the single agent data set is almost ready and should come out in the next couple of weeks. And once that is done, then we move into a couple of interesting dose expansion indications: ovarian cancer, small cell lung cancer, and then also CTCL, which is a rare T-cell indication. And then in parallel, we're moving already in the combination trial with Keytruda, and that data set will be available during the second half of this year. So that's a summary. As I mentioned, the next steps will be really the 2 different dose escalation readouts, the single agent as well as the combination. What we have seen so far is early signs of efficacy, and the safety is also excellent. So we could dose up to 1,000 milligram without any problems. Then to our last program, BT-001, which is the combination of the oncolytic virus platform of Transgene with our proprietary anti-CTLA-4 antibody. The principle here is really that you clone the gene of anti-CTLA-4 into the virus, as shown here in this diagram. You infect the patient with the virus-containing anti-CTLA-4. And then what you could see preclinically as well as in the clinic, that you have a very high concentration of the anti-CTLA-4 only where you want it, which is in the solid tumor environment, and no systemic exposure. And that we could demonstrate actually preclinically as well as in the clinic. The trial is ongoing, so we have finished actually part 1 and could show that is very well tolerated. We showed also some first indications of efficacy as a single agent, which is always an encouraging sign. And now we're moving into the dose escalation in combination with pembrolizumab. Then what is next? It's listed here. So as I said, so basically really the enrollment into the combination with pembro. That's the next step for this very interesting program. At the end, I would like to briefly also summarize the antibodies that we've generated with our partners, which is kind of an external portfolio. And I mentioned already at the beginning that our platform has been successfully used in a number of collaborations. And you see the different programs that have been generated during those collaborations here on this slide summarized. So there's a couple of phase 1 and phase 2 programs in collaboration with Mitsubishi, Takeda, Bayer, and Daiichi. And the latest edition of this is the deal that we did with Exelixis summer last year. And also this collaboration is progressing very well. And we hope that we hit the first milestones already during this year if everything goes according to plan. Then at the end, the final slide, the expected key catalysts for 2023. So I mentioned most of it, but just to summarize it again. So 1206 sub-Q dose escalation data set during the first half of this year, then start of the sub-Q within the pembro combination of BI-1206 also during the first half of this year, and that will also include an update on the IV. Then we would have the first data set around the single agent dose escalation of 1808. And then start the combination with Keytruda for BT-001. That will also happen early second half of next year. And then the 2 first data sets around the combination of 1808 with pembro and the combination of 1607 with trastuzumab during the second half of this year. And then last but not least, we also kick off our trial number 6, compound number 5, 1910. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much for your presentation, Martin. You started out, your first slide, the title of the presentation was Unleashing Immunity to Fight Cancer. Why does the immunity need to be unleashed with medicines in the case of cancer? Why can't it unleash itself?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question. And of course, I could answer this very broadly. I try to be brief as much as I can. So you could argue that you have cancer because the immune system didn't work in the first place, for whatever reason. And then, of course, what you would like to do is to activate it such that your own immune system, your own body, fights cancer. And we do that in 2 ways. So if you look at the immune system, it's 2 parts. It's the so-called adaptive on one side and the innate on the other side. And an interesting target in the context of the innate immune system is Fc gamma RIIb, the only inhibitory receptor of the innate, where we have 2 antibodies, as I already presented. And then we have 2 targets for the adaptive side. One is TNF receptor 2, which is a potential new checkpoint. And then the other one is CTLA-4. And both are targets that are on T regulatory cells, which are in the vicinity of the cancer. And they down-regulate the immune system. And to take them out is upregulating the immune response and trying to activate or unleash the immune system.
No, it's quite an interesting concept, and that actually brings me to my next question, which is there are a myriad of immuno-oncology companies out there. How does BioInvent stand out among all others?
We stand out because of the interesting platform that I introduced briefly, because that allows us really to identify new targets. As I also mentioned, I think on my first 2 or 3 slides, so there are already good treatments available, such as Keytruda or ipilimumab, checkpoint inhibitors. But they only help 15 to 20% of the patients. So there's still a high unmet need. And that's mainly due, at least to our perspective that we have on it, to the lack of new targets. And with our platform, we are able to identify new interesting targets, and most of our programs are first in class.
Mm-hmm. And lastly, you obviously have a strong track record for partnerships. And I'm wondering, what is your strategy for, first of all, striking these deals and then keeping such deals?
Yeah, to strike this deal, so that's relatively simple. You need to have something which is addressing unmet needs for those companies, and we do that with our first platform, as already explained on your second or during your second question. And secondly, to keep it, is basically you have to deliver. So you have to make sure then what you promise to the company, because you make a promise, and for that you get a nice upfront, hopefully. And then you have to keep the promise, which then would release a number of milestone payments, and then at the end also royalties if it becomes a successful product. And what we always do is once we strike a collaboration, we make sure that we can deliver. It's obviously not 100% guarantee, but we do whatever we can in order to deliver, and that keeps those collaborations running. So as long as this is successful, it will run. Yeah.
Great. Well, thanks so much for answering the questions, and thank you so much for the presentation. And we look forward to continue watching BioInvent delivering. So best of luck.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Nu ska vi få höra en presentation från Elin Trampe, VD på Dicot. Välkommen!
Tack så mycket! Dicot utvecklar en helt ny generation potensläkemedel. En helt ny klass läkemedel som ska erbjuda en bättre behandling än de preparat som finns på marknaden idag. Jag brukar säga att det är 25 år sedan Viagra lanserades på marknaden och sedan dess har innovationer inom området lyst med sin frånvaro. Vi tror att våran kandidat Libnolet kan vara det preparat som faktiskt kan stå för den innovationen som marknaden efterfrågar. Vi har fått det verifierat i studier som vi har genomfört hittills. Vi har också experter inom området som uttalar sig väldigt optimistiskt. Till exempel den framstående läkaren inom området, Harin Padmanathan, som också var ansvarig studieläkare under utvecklingen av Viagra och Cialis. Han tittar på det vi gör och säger att Libnolet kan stå för det paradigmskifte som marknaden behöver, skulle jag vilja påstå. Men också att det är den första revolutionerande molekylen som han har sett sedan Viagra lanserades. Det är såklart en stor global marknad vi vill adressera. Med Libnolet så vill vi kunna behandla både potensproblem, erektil dysfunktion, men även en annan indikation som heter prematur ejakulation eller tidig utlösning. De här marknaderna tillsammans värderas till ungefär 8 miljarder US-dollar, alltså 80 miljarder svenska kronor. Och den växer väldigt kraftigt. Den estimeras att växa med hela 50% fram till 2029. Erektil dysfunktion är väldigt vanligt. Cirka hälften av alla män, 40 år och uppåt, drabbas i någon grad. Det råder en tystnadskultur kring det här problemet, så det är inte många som känner till att det faktiskt är så många som drabbas. Och det påverkar ju såklart både mannen i fråga, men det blir väldigt snabbt ett relationsproblem. Det finns ett stort behov av förbättrade läkemedel. Som jag nämnde inledningsvis så utvecklades dagens mediciner, de som står för den största försäljningen idag, alltså Viagra och den typen av läkemedel, så kallade PDE5-hämmare. De utvecklades på 90-talet och såklart har de hjälpt väldigt många. Men de har ett antal brister som behövs adresseras. Och vi vet att ungefär hälften av de som testar de här läkemedlen väljer att sluta avbryta sin behandling. Och de här bristerna som vi ser är framförallt 3 saker. Det är biverkningar. Det är också så att över en tredjedel av alla som provar inte får önskad effekt av de här behandlingarna. Och det krävs också en planering, vilket tar helt udden av spontaniteten i sexlivet. Och den här planeringen innebär att du behöver ta ett piller en halvtimme eller timme innan sexuell aktivitet. Och sen sitter effekten i under en relativt kort period. Tidig utlösning är en annan så kallad sexuell dysfunktion. Inte lika välkänd så att säga. Det är inte många som känner till att det här är ett problem som man kan söka hjälp för. Och det är faktiskt den vanligaste, mest utbredda sexuella dysfunktionen bland män under 40 år. Och även här ser vi att tillgängliga preparat är väldigt begränsat, har biverkningar och har kort verkningstid. Så här finns det också mycket att göra. Våran kandidat då, Libnolet, den har sitt ursprung i en folkmedicinsk användning där vi nu idag jobbar med en semisyntetisk molekyl, en variant av de substanserna som fanns i den folkmedicinska användningen. Och vi vill såklart utveckla det här till ett registrerat läkemedel på världsmarknaden. Det har en helt unik verkningstid, en lång verkningstid har det visat sig i de prekliniska studierna som vi har gjort. Och det här innebär att vi vill utveckla det här till en behandling som du kan ta kanske en gång i veckan eller ännu mer sällan och däremellan kunna känna sig trygg med att man fungerar som man vill. Vi har också visat i våra prekliniska toxikologstudier att Libnolet där har uppvisat en god säkerhetsprofil. Och vi har också sett att i studier att Libnolet verkar ha en annan verkningsmekanism än dagens preparat. Och allt det här visar att det här verkligen har en potential att bli en helt ny generation läkemedel. Och vi vill faktiskt att det här ska bli förstahandsvalet för drabbade män och par. Och lite om de studier som vi har gjort hittills då, så har vi gjort prekliniska effektstudier hos ett CRO i Frankrike som heter Pelvifarm. De var också ansvarig forskningsinstitut åt Pfizer när Viagra lanserades. Så de har verkligen validerade, etablerade modeller för detta och är världsledande inom området. Där har vi gjort flera fristående studier som tydligt har visat på Libnolets effekt på erektionen. Och vi har också visat att effekten sitter i minst 7 dagar. Ja, vi står nu inför en stor och viktig milstolpe som bolag, och det är att starta den första kliniska studien, fas 1-studie på människa med våran läkemedelskandidat. Vi har jobbat väldigt intensivt med detta såklart den senaste perioden. Och jag är lite stolt att säga att vi har levererat helt enligt den utvecklingsplan och den tidplan som vi har haft. Vi har fram till idag avslutat våra prekliniska toxikologiprogram. Där Libnolet också uppvisat en väldigt god säkerhetsprofil. Vi har haft lyckosamma möten med Läkemedelsverket där de har ställt sig positiva till de förslagen som vi har lagt fram under ett så kallat rådgivningsmöte. Vi har också tillverkat vårt studieläkemedel i enlighet med GMP, och det har gjorts av en världsledande tillverkare inom läkemedel, Thermo Fisher Scientific i USA. Vi har också kontrakterat den forskningsklinik som ska genomföra den här fas 1-studien åt oss. Och det är CTC AB i Uppsala, och vi har jobbat och jobbar väldigt tätt tillsammans med dem med alla detaljer som ska på plats. Och vi känner oss så pass redo nu och har gjort så mycket så att vi har gått ut och sagt att vi planerar starta den här kliniska studien i augusti i år. Under förutsättning då att Läkemedelsverket ger oss tillstånd. Vår affärsstrategi som bolag är att vi ska utveckla Libnolet i egen regi fram till och med så kallade fas 2A-studier, alltså proof of concept i människa. För att sedan kunna finansiera och accelerera utvecklingen av Libnolet till världsmarknaden tillsammans med andra större etablerade läkemedelsbolag. Vi har en serie med teckningsoptioner som är aktuellt nu om man är intresserad av att investera i bolaget. Vi hade en emission av units, en företrädesemission i januari i år som övertecknades till 110%. Det ser vi som ett jättefint kvitto på att våra ägare tror på det vi gör och ser verkligen potentialen i den här läkemedelskandidaten och i bolaget. Men då i juni, 1 till 15 juni, så är det chans att teckna nya aktier i bolaget om man då innehar så kallade TO4 teckningsoptioner. De här finns att köpa på Spotlight. Några sammanfattande ord. Vi utvecklar alltså en helt ny generation potensläkemedel. Vi adresserar en global växande marknad på 8 miljarder US-dollar. Det finns ett stort behov av nya läkemedel på marknaden. Vi har väldigt många värdeskapande triggers framför oss och närmaste tid då, som jag har nämnt, i augusti i år då vi ska starta vår första studie i människa.
Tack så mycket för presentationen. Men jag är lite nyfiken på hur det ser ut med konkurrensen. Finns det andra utvecklingsprojekt som riktar in sig mot samma indikation?
Ja, men det är det som tycker vi är lite anmärkningsvärt, att det inte har hänt så mycket de senaste 25 åren då, sedan Viagra och den typen av läkemedel lanserades. Det är mycket liksom varianter av de så kallade PDE5-hämmarna eller kombinationer av befintliga preparat. Vi försöker ju följa allt utifrån nya patent och så vidare och monitorera vad som sker i omvärlden. Vi tycks vara helt unika med just den här långtidsverkande effekten som Libnolet tycks ha. Så att det känns som det finns en väldigt stor potential i det här projektet.
Jag förstår. Och ni är aktuella som du sa med lösenperiod här i teckningsoptioner i juni. Och sen är det dags igen i höst. Hur långt tar de här pengarna er?
Ja, precis. Vi kommunicerade ju då den här kapitalanskaffningsplanen i samband med företrädesemissionen i januari. Så den här ska finansiera bolaget genom kliniska fas 1-studier, men även för att förbereda oss inför fas 2 så vi kan starta dem så snabbt som möjligt efter.
Och ni är tydliga med att ni är intresserade av partnerskap. Men när i tiden skulle du säga att det är aktuellt?
Ja, som jag nämnde i presentationen så är ambitionen i dagsläget att vi ska utveckla den i egen regi fram till att vi har så kallade proof of concept-data. För att i samband med det förhoppningsvis då ha partnerskapsavtal på plats som sen kan finansiera, för det är en jätteviktig del av vår finansieringsplan långsiktigt, finansiera, men även att en partner som verkligen har muskler att ta det här preparatet till marknaden så fort som möjligt.
Tack så jättemycket för att du kom hit.
Ja, men tack själv. Tack för att jag fick komma.
The next speaker is Pernilla Sandvall, CEO at WntResearch. Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Go ahead.
Looking forward to present our research with Foxy5 and the company. And for myself, I'm a pharmacist by training, and before joining Wnt, I was at Index Pharmaceuticals as their Chief Operating Officer for 10 years. It's an SME company at the Karolinska Institute campus. And prior to that, more than 20 years at Merck & Company and MSD Sweden. It's one of the big, large pharma companies based in the US. So with this as a background, I joined Wnt, and I'm very happy, as said, to share with you our research, and we are preventing the metastatic process. The company is listed and a public company on Spotlight, so this is our disclaimer. What I really want you to remember is this slide. And Foxy5 is a unique drug candidate, and it's in clinical phase 2 development for colon cancer. And it has the potential to prevent the spread of cancer. There is a high met need for this stage 2 and 3 treatment of colon cancer. It has a significant commercial opportunity. So if we are to treat 65,000 patients a year, which is not the entire population, it is not the only population we could potentially treat, but if we are to treat 65,000 patients, that means a yearly revenue of more than $500 million. We have ad hoc analysis, and this showed that Foxy5 had an effect on tumor progression, and we measured that by invasive behavior of the tumor and also indicating a downstaging of the disease. So far, Foxy5 has a very favorable side effect profile, and I think when you know about cancer treatment, this is extremely important. There is also an opportunity. We have started with colon cancer with Foxy5, but there is a possibility to use Foxy5 in additional cancer types. So those are the key messages, and I'm going to get into more details to each of those, explaining a little further. Metastatic process, preventing metastasis to be formed. I think cancer is a complex area if you're not in the field, really. But I like this analogy with a dandelion, and if you think of the bloomed stand of seeds as the primary tumor, and then the seed could easily spread and be scattered around and form new dandelions. And this is a way I think it's easier to just remember what the metastatic process is. It's the spread of the cancer cells to other parts of the body. Colon cancer, so what is that? So colon, that's our last part of our intestine, and you can think of it as a flexible tube. The cancer is divided into stage 1 to stage 4, and if you're in stage 1, or if the tumor is in stage 1, it's very local in the colon. And as the tumor grows, it getting through the wall of this tube. And when the tumor is graded as stage 4, it has actually passed the wall of this tube, and the cancer cells have spread and formed tumors in other parts of the body. And that is the metastatic process. We are focusing on stage 2 and 3, where patients do not have metastasis yet, but they are at a higher risk to get it. We have reported unexpected ad hoc observations. And this was seen in 110 patients in our study, and one of the investigators made my colleague aware of this, and then we started to look deeper into this because it was unexpected. So in 110 patients means that half of them have received Foxy5 and half of them are in a control group. We could see that there was a reduced spread along the nerves and along the blood vessels. And there's also a reduced so-called TNM staging. It's a downstaging of the disease that was seen in this group that received Foxy5. Those observations are actually quite large. 110 patients, it's a lot when you're in early development, and they are significant, the figures. They have been made in several parameters described above. We have seen already this at surgery. So this means that patients get the diagnosis and then they're treated and they get the surgery. So it's within 3 to 4 weeks. And that was the unexpected, that we could see something so early. And this indicates that FOXY5 has a biological effect in patients. And this is the founder of the company, Professor Tommy Andersson. He is also a board member and active in the company. And of course, he has done a lot of preclinical work and experimental studies. And to see now that we confirm what he has seen previously was really, of course, very satisfactory and also very, very interesting. I would like to describe the study for you. So this is a little too complex build, but the study was originally planned. So patients get into the study when they get the diagnosis. Then after 4 weeks approximately, they have the surgery where they remove the tumor. And then we were to follow them for another 2 years to see the outcome. And treatments for the patients in the active group start immediately after diagnosis. So what we are doing now is that we are changing the study. So this is an amendment of the study, a protocol change. And we are going to add endpoints at surgery. And we are not going to follow the patients for another 2 years. So those positive observations has given us a lot of insights. So having such a revised study protocol, we foresee that we need additional 80 patients approximately. And it's not up to the company to decide how you will do the study. So we are currently in a review process by the health authorities and the ethical committees in where we are running the study, and that is in approximately 25 clinics in Spain and in Hungary. And when we have those approvals, I'm going to share exactly how the change study will look like. We expect this approval to come in during the summer. Now we will have then an opportunity to look at surgery, because ad hoc observation doesn't really count when you do clinical development. You have to have pre-specified measurements. So that's what we are adding now at surgery. This means also there's actually less capital needed to finish the study, as it's another 2 years from the last patients in. We are not going to look at them that long. This year we had rights issue and we have a warrant program, which takes us another year or so, I would say. When I know the study, we can tell more. And we have another warrant program coming up in September that will give further financing. And I also want to add, now we have seen something, there is a possibility to explore other indications as well. Before you go into clinic, you have to ensure that your preclinical tox packet, that's what it's called. And we have very good ones and could go into patients, obviously, as we have done that. What is also important to do is that you have your drug substance, but you also have to have a formulation that it can be given to patients. And in our case, it's a freeze-dried tablet. And at the clinics, it's dissolved in saline and it's giving us an infusion. And we manufacture this according to good manufacturing process, as you should. We have done 2 phase 1 studies, and they looked also good. So phase 1 you're doing to see how the drug is distributed, and it's not efficacy studies. The efficacy study is the phase 2 study that we are currently doing. But the phase 1 studies show that the drug had a very favorable safety profile. So as today, we have 100 patients treated, actually, and it looks very good. So Wnt5a is a protein that is preventing metastasis to before, and our substance is mimicking what it's doing. So if you have a tumor with a high degree or expression of Wnt5a, the cancer cells are not spread that much. But if you have a low degree of this protein, it's spread. And I show this with the dandelion again. But you can't give Wnt5a as a drug. So FOXY5 is a peptide, smaller molecule, mimicking the effect of Wnt5a. And we have shown this in vitro and in vivo studies. So that is when you look in cell sites and in preclinical studies. And we learned a lot, and we could, by those studies, confirm that FOXY5 is mimicking Wnt5a. There is approximately 1.1 million people actually get colon cancer every year. Out of those, many people actually survive. For 5 years, it's 71%. But if you do get metastasis, if the patients get metastasis, the overall survival after 5 years is only 14%. So there is a high need for drugs in this field. But as mentioned, we could also look at other indications. For instance, patients that could potentially not get other treatments, other chemotherapy, or a metastatic disease already not preventing further spread, or totally other cancer types like prostate or breast cancer. You're a very experienced team, both when it comes to development, commercialization, patent, and this is our management and our board and our scientific advisors. So with this, I would like to end. This is how I would like to see it, that the seed on this bloomed dandelion stays with the flower and are not spreading. That's what we are trying to prevent. And those were the key messages that I initially started with. And with this, I thank you very much for listening to me.
Thank you for the presentation. And I'm wondering about your TO5 warrant, which was subscribing to over 92%,
yes.
Right? And what does that mean for the company?
The financial situation in, I think, all drug companies are difficult, and any addition of the funding is super important. And I'm also very, very happy for the trust that I see that we get when you get SIA prescription rights. So I didn't really expect it to be that high. So I'm very happy with that. And thank everyone who supported us.
And how will you use this money?
When we know how the study will look like during the summer, we can estimate how long it will take and what the study will cost. Focus is going to be on the study, but you also need to do, there are other certain things that you can do. And we have to prioritize when we see where we're going.
I see. And you recently celebrated 1 year as CEO of the company. Would you like to summarize this year?
It's been very interesting. I must say, I'm really happy to be here. There is a need for those patients, need for a new drug, and with the ad hoc observations, I mean, luckily in one way, I come into the company at this stage, and was able to see that FOXY5 is really doing something in patients. That's been very exciting. And also, I must say, it's been challenging to raise money on the way the situation is in the world. So those have been both learnings and challengings, of course. But it's been an exciting year.
I see.
And I'm looking forward to what's coming.
Me too. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Nu ska vi få höra en presentation från Petter Bäckgren, VD på Bioservo. Välkommen.
Tack så mycket.
Varsågod börja.
Bioservo, ett företag som befinner sig inom techindustrin, life science, och arbetar med kraftförstärkande handskar för patienter som har en ersättning i handen, men också för industrin som behöver en hjälp för att minska risken för förslitningsskador. Jag tänkte börja med att sammanfatta Bioservo och var vi står. Vi befinner oss i ett väldigt spännande kommersiellt skede. Och tittar vi specifikt på life science-portföljen så har vi nu medicinsk evidens på att CarbonHan ger en kraftförstärkande effekt på 24% efter bara 6 veckors användande. Vi har fått CarbonHan MDR-godkänd i Europa och är nu igång på 8 marknader sedan mitten på januari. Vi har påbörjat det kommersiella arbetet i USA och har regulatoriskt tillträde. Och vi har identifierat vad vi bedömer en väldigt stor potential att hjälpa många patienter på den amerikanska marknaden, fördelat på nyckelindikationer som motsvarar en peakförsäljning på ungefär 250 miljoner. Så att det gäller för life science och det är det vi satsar väldigt, väldigt mycket på just nu. Utöver det har vi sedan tidigare vår industriella portfölj med IronHand och nu börjar vi också få bevis för den här produkten inom specifika vertikaler, bland annat inom Vopaka som är ett gjuteriföretag på den amerikanska marknaden som har 4 500 anställda. De har nu använt IronHand under en längre tid, 6 månader, och påvisat en reduktion av olyckor med 75% där IronHand används. Och en sån här olycka relaterat till handen har en kostnad på ungefär $25,000. Så att det här är en klar och tydlig ekonomisk besparing för bolagen. Utöver det så har vi också lyckats väl i Frankrike, inom Hermes, inom lädersömnad. Så att vi har hittat några, vad vi tycker, spännande vertikaler där IronHand verkligen hjälper till. Generellt för bolaget så ser vi att 2023 kommer att bli ett bra år. Vi började starkt i Q1 och sålde för 4,6 miljoner, vilket är en ökning med ungefär 60% mot föregående period. Och vi har offensiva måltal. 2025 så ska vi nå positivt kassaflöde och vi ska nå en omsättning på ungefär 100 miljoner. Och för att vi ska nå positivt kassaflöde så ska vi sälja 1300 enheter under ett år. Och för att vi ska nå ungefär 100 miljoner så ska vi sälja 1500 enheter. Och det är bra siffror att komma ihåg när vi går in och tittar lite mer noggrant på försäljningspotentialen. Bakgrunden: Bioservo grundades 2006 av Hans von Holst som är neurokirurg från Karolinska sjukhuset. Så Hans tillsammans med Jan Vikander som är professor i mekatronik startade Bioservo för att hjälpa framförallt strokepatienter och andra patienter tillbaka till att kunna hantera vardagen själva och kunna hjälpa dem så att få tillbaka en grundläggande funktion i handen. 2013 så kom den första produkten ut på marknaden. 2016 så började bolaget samarbeta med GM och NASA för att utveckla den industriella applikationen. 2017 så blev bolaget publikt på First North. 2019 så introducerades den lite större kliniska studien som vi nu har avslutat. Och nu har vi 4 avslutade studier med ungefär 200 patienter. Och vi lanserade också industriprodukten det året. 2021 så lanserade vi en uppgraderad industriprodukt och vi utvecklade hela plattformen som idag ingår i life science-produkten CarbonHan som blev färdig under 2022. Och då fick vi också MDR-godkännande. Vi fick också resultaten ifrån iHand-studien och vi påbörjade lanseringen. Det här är produkten för patienter och vad vi ser här så är det en handske med känsliga trycksensorer som aktiverar motorerna som sitter i en enhet. Och desto mer en patient eller en användare ska klämma kring ett objekt, desto mer aktiveras motorerna så att den är fullt ut intuitiv, vilket gör den helt unik. Så att det är en kraftförstärkning som helt och fullt följer individens egna greppmönster. Så desto mer kraft man behöver, desto mer kraft applicerar man. Och här ser ni också hur systemet bär. Så antingen så har man det som en midjeväska eller som en enklare ryggsäck. Och systemet väger bara 700 gram. Och om vi specifikt tittar på klinisk evidens nu då, så har vi påvisat att efter bara 6 veckors användning så kan vi förbättra greppstyrkan hos patienter som har haft en stabil nedsättning under en längre tid. Och vi kan inte bara förbättra greppstyrkan utan den är också ihållande över tid. Så att den här studien har också mätt patienterna 4 veckor efter att de har avslutat sin behandling med Carbon-Hand. Och de här patienterna de har använt Carbon-Hand i minst 25 minuter per dag under 6 veckor och därigenom då fått en signifikant förbättring i greppstyrkan. Vad vi också har mätt inom ramen för iHand-studien, det är då andra sekundära parametrar som livskvalitet. Och eftersom det också föll ut positivt så kan vi tack vare det och tack vare att vi kan koppla det till en förbättrad handfunktion så kan vi mäta QALYs och genom det så kan vi också titta på hälsoekonomiska vinster. Det innebär i det här fallet att om vi behandlar 1000 patienter under 2 år med Carbon-Hand så kan vi spara samhällskostnader med $30 miljoner över 10 år. Och det gör vi genom att vi flyttar stora patientpopulationer mellan olika nedsättningsgrader, ifrån svår nedsättning till moderat nedsättning till låg nedsättning. Och då minskar vi också kostnaderna för allmänläkarbesök och terapibesök eller assistans i hemmet eller förlorad arbetsinkomst. Så att nettoeffekten per patient i den här hälsoekonomiska beräkningen är 300 000 per behandlad patient, vilket är väldigt imponerande. Om vi tittar på affärsmodellen inom life science så använder vi distributörer som arbetar med nedsättningar i övre extremiteter. Vi säljer våra system för ungefär 70 000. Handsken som är en förbrukningsvara säljer vi separat sen för 8 000 kronor. Och ett system håller i minst 2 år och en handske förväntar vi oss håller ungefär 1 år. Vår marginal på just den här plattformen är 65%. Och betalarna för just Carbon-Hand, det liknar ju betalningssystemet i Sverige för Europa, där vi har en förskrivning via regioner. Men sen har vi också en affär i Sverige gentemot Försäkringskassan och gentemot Arbetsförmedlingen, där vi får tillbaka individer i arbete som har haft eller har en handskada. Och specifikt för USA, där handlar det ju mer om att vi behöver etablera eller använda de befintliga ersättningskoderna, så kallade HCPCS-koderna. Och de används sen för att försäkringsbolagen fakturerar tjänster inom sjukvården och produkter inom sjukvården gentemot olika instanser och huvudmän. Så att här handlar det om att vi ska identifiera rätt HCPCS-koder för att få rätt ersättning för produkten. Och där har vi kommit väldigt långt. Jag kommer att gå in på det här om en kort stund då. Och just den amerikanska möjligheten är förstås någonting som vi är extra fokuserade på just nu. Och vi har redan produkten registrerad som en 510K exempt i FDAs databas. Och det här är tidigare än vad vi hade planerat. Så det här arbetet har gått betydligt fortare. Vilket innebär att vi nu hamnar i en fas där vi verkligen ska etablera det kommersiella nätverket. Amerikanska marknaden är ju i grunden mest intressant internationellt och vi vet ju att medicinteknik och den omsättningen är till 43% från den amerikanska marknaden globalt. Och för våran produkt så tror vi att Bioservo kommer att ha sannolikt mer än 50% av omsättningen från USA och life science här inom några år. Vi har identifierat vad vi bedömer är en väldigt spännande potential med nyckelindikationer, men också vad som är otroligt intressant för oss. Det är att hitta vägar in mot amerikanska krigsveteraner som är fullt finansierade genom det amerikanska hälso- och sjukvårdssystemet. Och det här är sedan 9 miljoner individer, varav hälften av dem är över 65 år. En tredjedel av dem har någon form av nedsättning i handen, så att bara det är 1,3 miljoner. Sen vet vi också att det finns många strokepatienter, många patienter med ryggmärgsskada eller hjärnskada inom just VA-segmentet som är väldigt intressanta för oss, så att vi kan hjälpa dem till någon form av värdigt liv. Och utöver det så vet vi att förekomsten av MS, prevalensen av MS i USA är signifikant. 1 miljon patienter har MS i USA. Så att vad vi gör nu i USA specifikt, det är att vi håller på och analyserar det som är HCPCS-koder för att i nästa steg kunna verifiera det med den amerikanska hälso- och sjukvårdsmyndigheten. Och så fort vi har gjort det så kommer vi att etablera kommersiella nätverk med partners där diskussioner pågår som har access till våra specifika patientgrupper som befinner sig inom neurorehab primärt då. Men som jag nämnde, just VA-segmentet är ett nyckelområde för oss. Att där arbetar vi offensivt för att hitta en infrastruktur och kunna nå dem fort. Vilket är jättespännande. Jag tänkte bara kort avsluta med att berätta om Iron Hand. Och Iron Hand är ju då för industrin och en produkt som används för att minska risken för förslitningsskador och använda för att minska antalet olyckor på arbetsplatser. Det är en snabbare och starkare produkt. Men vad vi har påvisat nu då, det är att vi signifikant minskar antalet olyckor i en greppintensiv miljö. Där Wupaka inom gjuteribranschen i USA, som är det största gjuteriföretaget i USA, också en föregångare när det gäller att använda innovativa produkter, har kunnat påvisa det genom att jämföra en sajt där man har använt Iron Hand i samtliga situationer på en specifik applikation. Jämför man det mot andra sajter där man har gjort exakt samma applikation men utan Iron Hand. Och affärsmodellen för Iron Hand är motsvarande. Vi vänder oss till distributörer som har en korg av produkter som stärker närvaron hos våra kunder och beslutsfattare. Vi säljer produkten för 60 000 till en distributör och det är primärt franska marknaden och den amerikanska marknaden som är intressant för oss. Så avslutningsvis så vill jag bara sammanfatta och konkludera då att vi ser kortsiktigt en stor potential att få in försäljning genom Iron Hand och nya implementeringsprojekt som vi driver nu, motsvarande det vi har gjort inom gjuteriindustrin. Och utöver det så har vi nu Carbon Hand MDR-godkänt och vi rullar nu på 8 marknader i Europa. Vi har klinisk evidens för produkten, vi har hälsoekonomiska data, vi har en väldigt fin affärspotential i USA och vi arbetar fullt och fast nu med att så snabbt som möjligt komma in på den amerikanska marknaden och säkerställa att så många patienter som möjligt får tillgång till vår teknologi som ger en helt unik möjlighet att hjälpa patienter i vardagen. Tack så mycket!
Och som du säger, ni har ju rullat ut på 8 marknader, bland annat Sverige.
Ja.
Vad har ni sett där? Har patienterna kommit med någon recension eller vad har du fått höra från patienter?
Vi började sälja i mitten på januari och vi sålde ett 50-tal system i Europa. 30 av dem gick direkt till patienter, 20 av dem till Norge och 9 till Sverige. Så att Norge är egentligen vår bästa marknad och därefter kommer Sverige. Den svenska marknaden, där har vi verkligen lyckats, framförallt mot arbetsförmedlingen, vilket är jätteroligt. För här kan vi verkligen få tillbaka arbetare som har en handskada eller vad det nu kan vara. Så att de slipper gå arbetslösa. Det är ju såklart en otrolig samhällsekonomisk nytta som vi gör. Och det är ingen som behöver övertygas om att den här investeringen ska tas. Så att det är snabba beslut, så det är jätteroligt. Sen har vi också börjat få förskrivning ifrån regionerna. Så nu är det uppe i vissa regionråd för att implementera Carbon Hand som en produkt i deras ordinarie sortiment. Och återkopplingen vi får ifrån patienter, den är jättefin, den är fantastisk. Så att produkten gör en stor skillnad och vi har verkligen lyckats, upplever vi, att få ut en teknologi som kan hjälpa människor i vardagen samtidigt som den rehabiliterar patienter.
Det är ju dags för företrädesemission för er, har jag förstått. Vad ska pengarna gå till?
Vi kommer ju framförallt nu att växla upp kommersiellt. Så nu har ju vi produkter bara i kommersiell fas, inte utvecklingsfas, vilket är unikt för oss. Och inom Life Science så har vi redan under Q1 sålt egentligen nästan dubbelt så mycket som vi gjorde för Life Science hela förra året. Och halva omsättningen i Q1 var Life Science, vilket är en milstolpe för oss. Men vad vi ska göra nu, det är verkligen växla upp och säkerställa att vi kommer ut på våra marknader i Europa, men också att vi etablerar ett kommersiellt nätverk i USA. Och där är vi relativt nära, så att senast i september så är vår ambition att då ska vi ha ett etablerat kommersiellt nätverk för den amerikanska marknaden gentemot våra nyckelindikationer. Jag
förstår. Om du får avsluta med att ta ditt bästa argument då, varför ska man gå in nu?
Ja, det är ett helt unikt läge. Bioservo är ju i en fantastiskt spännande kommersiell fas. Vi har färdiga produkter. Vi vet att de här produkterna efterfrågas på marknaden. Inom Life Science så finns det en betalningsstruktur, det finns patienter och det finns en vilja. Så att det här är jättespännande. Så att, och det har aldrig varit billigare än nu att gå in i Bioservo, och potentialen är enorm.
Vi får följa det här helt enkelt. Tack så mycket för att du kom hit.
Tack själv.
2022 was a challenging year for the life science industry, and now everyone is looking for that positive change. We have invited Jonas Ribbelöv, managing partner from Vator Securities, corporate finance firm based in Stockholm, to talk a little bit about the current financing climate, about international investors' sentiment toward the Nordics, and general trends in the market. Welcome, Jonas.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
So if we start with a general question, what are your key takeaways from 2022 in regards to the market climate right now?
It was a challenging year with transactions being taking place, but clearly the average size per transaction has gone down considerably compared to previous years. I think it's down about 40 to 50%, which is what one would expect given the decline in market cap or perceived market cap for these companies. So it's from a dilution perspective. So those very much go hand in hand. And we're seeing that it takes a lot more time for the companies to complete their financing rounds due to the fact that the investors are more risk averse for obvious reasons.
So how will a company now with an imminent need for a capital injection, in your advice, how should they prepare before they contact Vator, for example, or one of your peers?
A strong recommendation to the companies is to act proactively. So do not wait too long to engage a corporate finance firm with advisory services, because the runway that we need to complete transaction is longer than before. And also before contacting us, make sure to gauge the level of insider participation from current investors, because that it's kind of a quality gauge for us as advisors, and also it details how big the hole in the book is. And then, it decides a scope for us in terms of how much we need to engage to compensate for if there is a lack of insider participation. And also, furthermore, I would encourage clients to think about value inflection points going forward, so that we can structure, and this will be our advice to them, so we can structure the process around these value inflection points going forward. So maybe we would propose that we would tranche the fundraising process and to have them centered around these value inflection points.
Would you say that there are specific trends when the small to mid-sized life science companies go out to raise capital in terms of transaction sizes or cost of capital, or the use of guarantors, for example, things like that?
Well, what we're seeing clearly, the cost of capital has increased, of course, due to the interest rate increases, and also the role for guarantors is more important than ever. And given the fact that the gauge of the risk averseness, the cost to engage the guarantors has increased. So right now within the life science scene, we're seeing a median guarantee fee of around 13 to 14%, which is, it's higher than before, which is, it's a gauge of the investor sentiment at the moment.
And what would your specific strategic advice be then to in terms of what key boxes do the company need to check in order to be successful in the capital raises at this point?
From our own experiences, it's very important to build a cap table, and that's a process which takes years to achieve. So you need to start out early in that, and so trying to identify the right type of investor at each growth stage is a key learning that we try to apply within Vator Securities for our clients. So that is very, very important. So, you don't want to have a prominent investor at the too early stage. So basically building from high net worth individuals, family offices, and gradually growing the company. So making the company eventually then institutionally viable, which is a function of market cap, of course. So it's that building blocks along the way to achieve the cap table over time.
Among some investors, there is perhaps an idea that it's really good to take in a heavy institutional investor at an early stage, just to have a good name there. But according to you, that's not really the case then.
I think it could be hard to achieve, but also even if it's possible, maybe that is not the right route, because it's if you're achieving according to plan, that's fine. But often in early stage companies, you have delays, postponements. And there's more acceptance for that in type of family office, high net worth individuals, type of investors. So it's I think that is the type that you should be aiming for at an early stage.
So I guess in terms of having a strong investor early and then losing them, that would be a really, really bad sign for the company.
Yes, and we see that on several occasions, because then there's a long way back for the company to rebuild trust. So building this in stages, as I said, going from family offices, high net worth individuals, etc., and moving up, it should be done very methodologically. So it's because if they back out, institutional investors, everyone's going to ask why, and it's going to be difficult to rebuild the cap table, which is a challenge, and we see it from time and time again.
Jonas, in your line of work, you speak with a lot of investors, and you recently hosted an international event, the Swiss Nordic Bio conference, where, Nordic companies can meet international investors. From that experience, what would you say is the sentiment among international investors towards investing in Nordic or Swedish companies?
Both Nordic and Swedish companies, I think, are perceived as a hotspot within the life science scene, which is clearly evident here in Lund as well. So there is a large international interest for Nordic companies, and there is a long history of innovation in Sweden, which means like a company like ours can focus on a vertical of just life science as one of our verticals. Due to this significant interest. So we're seeing right now the number of transactions is continuing in 2023 at the same rate as in 2022. So even though maybe the transaction size has come down due to decrease in market cap, as I said before.
Do you think that the level of interest for Nordic or Swedish companies is the same as it has been, or has it changed in any way due to the market circumstances?
I think it's the same high level as before. There's always, in turbulent times, there's always a flight to quality. So of course, investors are looking for more of de-risked investment cases. So it's, as I said, flight to quality, which is a function of their risk sentiment at the moment.
And are there any specific trends then among the international investors in regards to what they are looking for with companies? Is it specific technologies or indications that are hotter than others and so on?
There's a clear trend right now in terms of artificial intelligence. So companies who are applying that to, for example, medtech devices with coupled to artificial intelligence, that is perceived as being clearly a hotspot, and it's a gauge of the investor sentiment at the moment. So these companies are receiving quite a lot of attention at the moment.
AI is on everyone's lips these days.
Correct.
Yeah. To finish off, what would be your most concrete strategic advice then to a Swedish or Nordic company that seeks to attract international capital from European investors, for example?
I think it's what comes back to planning. So having a well-executed plan, a long-term plan for fundraising, and creating that around value inflection points for your company, and gauging, de-risking your business case, and working then on an equity story to, in a simple way, to explain the virtues of your company towards investors. Planning ahead of time, that is clearly the most important, and building a cap table over time, which is an investment both for the management and the board, because it takes a lot of time to achieve that. But it is a necessity to achieve once in the future. Then once you've built market cap, when you can engage with the institutional capital.
So that's some really good strategic and concrete advice from Jonas here to focus on your long-term planning, the inflection points, and also, of course, to build a sound cap table at an early stage. So thank you very much, Jonas, for joining us today.
Thank you.
Nu ska vi få höra en presentation från Jamal El-Mosley, vd för Elicera Therapeutics. Välkommen hit.
Tack så mycket.
Och varsågod och börja.
Tack så mycket. Elicera Therapeutics är ett cell- och genterapibolag med fokus på immunonkologi. Det innebär att vi utvecklar terapier som använder patientens eget immunsystem för att bekämpa cancer. Närmare bestämt så utvecklar vi 2 olika typer av produkter, CAR-T-cellsterapier och onkolytiska virus. Bolaget är ett spin-off från Uppsala universitet. Ni ser 2 av medgrundarna här, professor Magnus Sand och hans forskarkollega Diju. De har tagit fram 2 CAR-T-celler och 2 onkolytiska virus i vår portfölj. Och även utvecklat en iTank-plattform som vi kallar det. En plattform som man kan använda för att beväpna CAR-T-celler och i slutändan trigga ett parallellt immunsystem mot cancer. Vi publicerade Proof of Concept-data för iTank-plattformen i april förra året i Nature Biomedical Engineering, som anses vara en av världens främsta vetenskapliga tidskrifter. Aktien är listad på First North. Vi har ett market cap på strax under 70 miljoner kronor och hade en kassa på ungefär 42 miljoner kronor i slutet på kvartal 1 i år. Och den här kassan räcker till ungefär mitten av 2024. Men faktum är att kapitalbehovet bortom mitten av 2024 är relativt litet, givet att de 2 kliniska studierna som vi har pågående i bolaget idag är till största delen finansierade via mjuka medel. Så AdWin-studien i neuroendokrina tumörer är finansierad via Victor Nest-stiftelsen till fullo. Och CAR-T-studien, vi ska påbörja behandling av patienter nu under Q3, den är till största delen finansierad via ett EU-bidrag vi fick förra året på 26 miljoner kronor. Här ser ni vår produktportfölj. Ni ser att vi har program i olika utvecklingsskeden. Det som har kommit längst är ELC100 i neuroendokrina tumörer. Jag kommer att prata mer om detta alldeles strax. ELC201 är vad vi kallar nästa generations onkolytiska virus. Till skillnad från 100 så har vi tagit fram detta för behandling av i stort sett vilken cancerform som helst. Och här har vi också beväpnat det här onkolytiska viruset med iTank-plattformen. Vilket vi även har gjort för våra CAR-T-program i 301 och 401. 301 har vi tagit fram för behandling av BCS-lymfom. Läkemedelsverket gav oss ett villkorat godkännande i slutet av april. Vi ska validera GMP-processen under sommaren och sikta på att börja behandla patienter under Q3. 401 har vi tagit fram för behandling av en CAR-T-behandling för solida tumörer. Men initialt så börjar vi med glioblastom. CAR-T-cellsterapi ingår i begreppet immunonkologi, som är ett vitt begrepp som innefattar många olika angreppssätt att använda immunsystemet mot cancer. Och just CAR-T-celler har visat sig vara särskilt lovande inom detta i sig lovande området inom läkemedelsutveckling. Ni ser en bild här på mannen här i mitten som följdes upp förra året, 10 år efter att han fick CAR-T-behandling. Det här är en patient som inte hade några andra behandlingsalternativ. Men 10 år senare så är han tumörfri och har fortfarande ett aktivt immunsystem mot cancer. Samma sak med den flickan som ni ser här också på bilden. Första barnet som behandlades med CAR-T-cellsterapier följdes upp 10 år senare, också förra året, och hon är fortsatt tumörfri och är friskförklarad. Och det här är patienter som tidigare då inte hade några andra behandlingsalternativ och ansågs vara döende, som då har blivit hjälpta på det här sättet utav de här typen av behandlingar. Och det här visar på den stora potentialen som CAR-T-terapier har, vilket också är anledningen till att ASCO, som är en av världens största cancerorganisationer, utsåg CAR-T-terapi till Advance of the Year 2018. CAR-T-terapi går i regel ut på att man plockar ut patientens T-celler från blod. T-cellerna kan man säga är immunförsvarets främsta soldater. Sen handlar det om att lära dem och träna upp dem att känna igen cancerceller som någonting som ska oskadliggöras. Och det gör man genom att genmodifiera dem så att de uttrycker en chimär antigenreceptor. Och den här chimära antigenreceptorn eller CAR-molekylen känner då igen måltavlor på tumörcellens yta. Man förökar dem i provrör, sprutar tillbaka dem in i patienterna och då är förhoppningen att de ska söka upp alla måltavlor och oskadliggöra dem. Det här fungerar otroligt bra i olika typer av blodcancer. Det är också därför vi ser att det finns 10 marknadsgodkännanden inom olika indikationer i just blodcancer. Fördelat på 6 CAR-T-produkter. Men ingen CAR-T-terapi är än idag godkänd för behandling av någon solid tumör. Och det beror på vissa utmaningar som man står inför vid behandling av solida tumörer som man inte står inför när man behandlar blodcancer. Jag kommer gå igenom dem alldeles strax. Ni ser på den här bilden också att de flesta programmen runt om i världen i CAR-T-fältet fortfarande är i preklinisk utvecklingsfas. En stor del är i fas 1, men relativt få sätt är i fas 2 och framåt. Och poängen med det är helt enkelt att ett bolag som Elicera fortfarande kan ha en möjlighet att få en stor påverkan på detta området. Framförallt då via vår AdjuTec-plattform, vilket också är det som differentierar Elicera från andra CAR-T-spelare. Man kan säga att CAR-T-celler har utvecklats i olika generationer, allt ifrån första till fjärde. Första generationens CAR-T-celler visade sig vara undermåliga på olika sätt, så man förbättrar dem i andra, tredje och sen slutligen fjärde. Det som särskiljer fjärde från övriga är att fjärde generationens CAR-T-celler innehåller en genmodifiering. En gen som då kodar för en immunstimulerande substans. Oftast är det en cytokin, oftast är det IL-12, ibland är det någonting annat. Men poängen är att man använder oftast ett immunstimulerande ämne. Det som skiljer vår fjärde generations CAR-T-celler via AdjuTec-plattformen och övriga fjärde generationens, det är att vi kodar inte för en cytokin, utan via AdjuTec-plattformen så kodar vi för ett neutrofilaktiverande protein, förkortat NAP, från Helicobacter pylori, alltså en bakterie. Och skillnaden här är då att när det här proteinet från den här bakterien frisläpps, då startar det en proinflammatorisk reaktion som innehåller över 20-talet olika cytokiner och kemokiner som vi tror på ett sammantaget sätt mer optimalt och effektivt aktiverar immunsystemet mot cancer. De 2 stora utmaningarna som CAR-T-terapier står inför vid behandling av solida tumörer som de inte står inför vid behandling av blodcancer är framförallt 1. En heterogen målantigenuttryck i solid tumör. Det har du inte i blodcancer där man till exempel vet att CD20 och CD19 är 2 måltavlor som är överuttryckta på samtliga tumörceller. I en solid situation är det svårt att hitta en måltavla som är överuttryckt på alla tumörceller. Det innebär helt enkelt att om CAR-T-cellen missar vissa tumörceller, då kommer de bilda CAR-T-resistenta metastaser som inte går att behandla med CAR-T-terapi. I en solid tumör har du också en mycket immunsuppressiv mikromiljö som trycker ner immunsystemet, försvagar CAR-T-cellerna och gör det svårt för dem att penetrera tumören och faktiskt få en effekt. Det här problemet har du inte heller i blodcancer. Sättet som vi vill bekämpa detta då och lösa de här 2 utmaningarna, det är att ladda våra CAR-T-celler med NAP-transgenen. När NAP-proteinet frisläpps, då startar det en proinflammatorisk reaktion som rekryterar patientens egna immunceller till tumörområdet. Där kommer de i slutändan att plocka upp tumörämnen, alltså tumörantigener, måltavlorna, presentera dem för naiva T-celler i lymfkörtlarna. Och de här T-cellerna kommer då i kroppen att läras upp att angripa alla celler som bär de här måltavlorna. Och på det sättet så vill vi få en parallell attack mot cancer, parallellt med att CAR-T-cellen attackerar cancer. Vi har publicerat proof of concept-data för alla stegen här i verkningsmekanismen i Nature Biomedical Engineering. Och jag kommer inte gå igenom all data här, men lite data där vi har jämfört effekten av AdjuTec-beväpnade CAR-T-celler i rött och jämfört med effekt med just obeväpnade i blått och jämfört med placebo i svart. Och då ser vi här att oberoende av vilken tumörtyp vi behandlar, vilken musmodell vi använder eller vilken CAR-antigenmåltavla vi riktar oss mot, så ser vi en förlängd överlevnad och minskad tumörtillväxt. Det här indikerar då att det här är universellt applicerbart med vilken CAR-T-cell som helst. Så det här skulle vi kunna erbjuda andra CAR-T-utvecklare. Om man sedan plockar ut tumörprover från mössen och tittar i tumörerna så ser man också mycket högre infiltration av AdjuTec-beväpnade CAR-T-celler i rött här. Ni ser den röda stapeln. Väsentligt högre infiltration om man jämför med obeväpnade CAR-T-celler i blått då. Studien som vi ska påbörja här nu under Q3, den är till största delen finansierad via ett EU-bidrag på 26 miljoner vi fick förra året. Och det här är en doseskaleringsstudie, så vi börjar med en lägre dos och trappar upp dosen i 3 olika grupper med målsättningen att sedan behandla ytterligare 6 patienter med max tolererbar dos. Vi kommer totalt ha 12 patienter som vi kan utvärdera på effekt med den högsta dosen. Vi kommer rapportera data vid 3 tillfällen. Första gången när steg 1 är avslutat, safety-delen, 12 patienter. Vi bedömer att det kan ske någon gång under första halvan 2025. Andra gången när steg 2 är avslutat, 6 till 12 månader senare. Och sen igen när studien är avslutad i sin helhet, vilket vi bedömer kommer ske någon gång under 2027. 401 som jag tror jag nämnde tidigare har vi utvecklat för behandling av glioblastom. IL-13RA2 är en måltavla vi vet är överuttryckt i hjärncancer. Men vi tror också att den här måltavlan är överuttryckt på en rad andra solida tumörer. Så vi skulle kunna bredda oss ytterligare om vi vill det. Om vi går in och tittar på onkolytiska virus nu och lämnar CAR-T-fältet lite åt sidan, så kan man säga att onkolytiska virus är viruspartiklar som har genmodifierat så att de selektivt tar sig in i cancerceller och replikerar sig endast i cancerceller men inte friska celler. Du får då en tumörcellsdöd, tumörcellen sprängs och får en onkolys. Och det här stimulerar i sig patientens egna immunsystem via T-cellerna att också angripa cancer. Den processen vill vi dra nytta av i ELC201, vilket är anledningen till att vi till skillnad från 100 har laddat 201 med iTank-plattformen. Vi har också laddat det med 4.1 BBL för att ytterligare stimulera T-celler. Och en annan viktig skillnad mellan 100 och 201 är att 100 har vi tagit fram specifikt för neuroendokrina tumörer, medan 201 kan man använda för att behandla i stort sett vilken cancerform som helst. Studien vi har pågående i neuroendokrina tumörer, den är fullt finansierad via bidrag från Victory-Net-stiftelsen som sattes upp av Vince Hamilton som ni ser på bild här och hans familj. Vince hade själv neuroendokrina tumörer men han tyvärr går bort innan han fick en möjlighet att delta i studien. Det är också därför vi kallar det här för Advins-studien och det här läkemedlet för Advins. Det är också en doseskaleringsstudie. Här är syftet att utvärdera safety primärt, så vi börjar med låg dos, trappar upp den i takt med att vi ser att patienterna klarar av det. Och tanken är sedan att behandla ytterligare patienter i fas 2 med den högsta dosen. Och vi har tagit oss igenom 9 utav 12 patienter hittills utan att ha sett några allvarliga biverkningar. Vi som driver bolaget är jag själv tillsammans med Magnus och Di, medgrundare. Vi äger idag ungefär hälften av bolaget, 47%. Jag själv har drivit biotechbolag i 16 år, största delen inom just immunonkologi. Har bland annat varit vd och agerat medgrundare för ett annat immunonkologibolag som innan hette Immunicum, som numera heter Mendus. Magnus har vunnit många priser som forskare inom cell- och genterapi, arbetar på National Cancer Institute och också var delaktig i den allra första CAR-T-studien som någonsin genomfördes i hela Europa. Så den erfarenheten finns i bolaget, trots att det är vår första CAR-T-studie. Och även hans kollega då, DU, har vunnit många priser som forskare inom immunologi och är meduppfinnare till Eliceras patent. Med det tackar jag för mig och öppnar upp för frågor.
Ja, men tack så mycket för presentationen. Jättespännande. Jag är lite intresserad av vad ni har fått för intresse för potentiella partners och så. Vad har du märkt av?
Det är en del av vår affärsstrategi att söka partnerskap egentligen för alla program. Vi söker aktivt just nu partnerskap för vår iTank-plattform. Efter publikationen i Nature så skulle jag säga att vi har fått visst intresse både från akademin och industrin. Så det är mycket uppmuntrande och kul att se. Så vi har en del samtal pågående. Man märker också nu att klimatet är lite förändrat mot vad det var tidigare. I den mån att det är många bolag som har svårt att söka finansiering nu, vilket betyder att de söker sig gärna till potentiella partners för att försöka få in pengar via licensiering till exempel. Och det innebär i sin tur att det är väldigt högt tryck på de här större läkemedelsbolagen som har stora kassor och en kapacitet att köpa in projekt utifrån. Så processen är allmänt lite trögare nu och tar lite längre tid. Men vi arbetar med en ledande life science transaktionsfirma som heter Life Science Consulting, som vi har ett etablerat samarbete med just för att försöka säkra den här typen utav samarbeten då. Och vi tror att iTank-plattformen går att utlicensiera icke-exklusivt flera gånger till olika CAR-T-bolag. Så det är ambitionen för oss.
Och det låter ju som att det är väldigt mycket som händer i bolaget, men om du skulle peka ut en viktig milstolpe som du förväntar dig att ni kommer uppnå i år, vad skulle det vara?
Alltså det är en väldigt stor milstolpe vi har uppnått genom att få det här villkorade godkännandet. Det som återstår nu är att validera vår tillverkningsprocess under sommaren och sen påbörja behandling av patienter under Q3. Det är en väldigt stor milstolpe. Ett annat mål vi har satt för oss under det här året är att slutföra rekryteringen av patienterna till AdWin-studien. Och där har vi 3 patienter att behandla då. Och det är svårt att utlova att vi kommer få in de patienterna, för man kan aldrig garantera inklusionstakten. Oftast är det småproblematiskt att rekrytera patienter. Men vi har också vidtagit åtgärder för att skynda på det så gott som möjligt. Så jag bibehåller min optimism att vi ska kunna slutföra den studien under det här året också då. Att behandla alla 3 patienterna som är kvar.
Och det är inte bara hos er det händer mycket, utan på cellterapiområdet i stort har det ju varit många stora affärer på sistone. Varför tror du att det är så hett just nu?
Ja, men det är ett spännande område just för att den här typen av produkter kan man göra väldigt mycket med. Du kan behandla många olika typer av sjukdomar. Du kan skräddarsy den här typen av behandlingar på olika sätt för att optimera effekten. Så att det är kandidater med stor potential och jag tycker man ser det som du säger på de affärerna man har sett som har dykt upp här det senaste. För några veckor sedan var det en affär i just blodcancerfältet för CAR-T-terapier som var en ganska stor affär. Vilket är uppmuntrande, för det visar också på värdet som industrin sätter för den här typen av terapier. Men också intressant att det är just blodcancer där det finns godkända produkter redan. Och den största potentialen finns faktiskt i solida tumörer. Störst potential och störst behov. Men ändå ser man det även i blodcancerområdet. Så att, jag tror att vi är på rätt ställe. Och jag tror att vi gör rätt saker helt enkelt.
Det blir intressant att följa. Tack så mycket för att du kom hit.
Tack.
And for our next presentation, I'm happy to introduce AcuCort and CEO Jonas Jönmark. Welcome, Jonas.
Thank you very much, and thank you for having me. I'm Jonas Jönmark, CEO of AcuCort. I'm here today to present to you the business case of AcuCort and also the investment case around our product Secmelit. Secmelit is a product which targets a large unmet medical need with the patients suffering from severe or acute allergy. The treatment available for those patients today has been around since the 1980s, and that's corticosteroid tablets that needs to be taken out of the blister pack, crushed, and then dissolved in water, which is quite time-consuming for the patient. And the patient has at the same time an ongoing acute allergic reaction with the stress and everything. It takes time, but our solution is Secmelit, which is an oral film, which gives the patient a very short time to treatment. And time is very important when it comes to treating this kind of illnesses. The product Secmelit, it's an oral film the size of a business card. Fits in your mobile phone or your wallet or whatever. Thin like this, opens very easily, and on the inside you find a small oral film which is placed on the tongue and dissolved in 10 to 15 seconds. The active ingredient is dexamethasone, which is a well-known, well-used glucocorticosteroid. The areas of use or the indications of this product is, of course, acute and severe allergic reactions, but also CRUP in children, CINV, which is nausea when being treated with chemotherapy, and also COVID-19. We have market approval for this product in Sweden, Denmark, Finland, and also Norway. So we have covered the 4 largest Nordic countries. And we are preparing another application for the US and also for the rest of Europe. There is a large market potential for this product. If you look at the total allergy market, you can look at it as a pyramid with the base of the pyramid is the light to moderate patients. Patients like me who has a pollen allergy. I buy my antihistamines over the counter at the pharmacy. But then you have also the moderate to severe allergic patients who needs their steroids to treat their acute allergy. And that is a very large portion of this pyramid. The market size is more than 3 billion euros a year in this segment. And we have like somewhere between 25 million to 30 million diagnoses a year. That's the main target for this product. We have the top of the pyramid with the patients who are treated with adrenaline, but they should also be treated with a steroid. But the main target is the mid-size of the pyramid. We were talking about the large unmet need, and we have, of course, done surveys with patients and doctors. We have done one of the largest patient surveys when it comes to allergy treatment in Northern Europe, where we found that more than 70% of the patients would prefer an oral film to tablet treatment due to the large unmet need by the patients. 24% of the patients had experienced difficulties swallowing when they had their severe allergic reaction, which means they can't access their medication, which is a big problem, which could be solved with an oral film. More than 40% of the patients had sometimes feared for their lives when they had their severe allergic reaction, which is something that indicates the severity of this for the patient. Almost 70% of the patient had to seek emergency medical care to treat their allergic reaction, which is also very traumatizing for the patient, but also adds a huge cost for the society. Looking at the doctors, 9 out of 10 doctors would prescribe the product if it were available on the market today, which is a strong indicator of what the doctors think about the medical need of this product. More than 80% of the doctors would prescribe Secmelit to more than half of their allergic patients, which is also a strong indicator on the large unmet medical need for this product. Moving on to the patent and trademark protection of the product. We have granted patents in more than 30 countries, including Europe, US, China, Japan, and we have a patent protection until 2035. And we have 2 patents, and 1 patent for the technology itself, but also the production process. So we're covered from 2 sides, you can say. Where are the company at this point with the product? We are now in the beginning of commercialization, and we are moving forward with our strategy. We have the first commercial agreement signed. We have the focus on the Nordic region. Like I said earlier, we are approved in Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and Finland. We are seeking additional approvals like US, the other European countries, and some selected markets outside of this geography. We are moving forward with distributors and licensees. We are commercializing this through partners, local partners in different parts of the world. And of course, production, very important. We have secured volume production for the product going forward. To sum it up as an investment case, we have an innovative product which will make a huge difference for the patients with severe allergy or acute allergy. And also, as I demonstrated, there is a huge unmet medical need for this product. It's a large market. It's a huge potential in the market for this kind of product. There's a low development risk. The product is fully developed. It has already gone through 4 approval processes. The Swedish MPA, the MPA in Denmark, Norway, and Finland has put their seal of approval on this product. And of course, also the team behind the launching of the product. We have a very experienced management team and a very experienced board behind this in the company. If you're interested in knowing more about the company and the plans going forward, please visit our webpage, AcuCort.com. Follow us on social media like LinkedIn or our YouTube channels where we have presentations, etc. So with this presentation, I would like to thank you everybody for your kind attention and interest in the AcuCort business case.
Jonas, you talked about applications here and you've got further applications ongoing. What would you say affects the timelines of these the most? Because of course everyone wants to know when the applications will be approved.
The biggest factor in the timelines is really the authorities. Like, this is a very good example looking at the US and the FDA. They ask us a question. We answers in like 2 or 3 days. Then they have 90 days to reply. And usually we get the reply day 89. And then they ask another question, and then it goes on. So we are in the mercy of the authorities when it comes to the timelines, when it comes to registrations, approvals, those kind of things. And this is not unique for AcuCort. This is for all biotech companies.
It's a process that you can't control, really.
No, you can't control it. You can always ask to speed up, but the authorities doesn't always listen to those. They have their own timelines and tasks to do.
So as a final question then, what triggers do you have upcoming?
As an investor, I would look for more commercial contracts, looking at what's happening in the Nordics. additional registrations, other commercial indicators like trademark protection. I would also look for things like publications of the patient surveys, etc., because we have a lot of things coming up.
We will look for all of those things then. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
And for the next presentation, we are joined by Initiator Pharma and CEO Claus Elsborg Olsen. Welcome, Claus.
Thank you very much. Initiator Pharma is a clinical stage pharma company. We develop innovative drugs for significant unmet medical needs within the peripheral and the central nervous system. It is my pleasure today to give an update of the stuff that we're doing in Initiator Pharma. My name is Claus Elsborg Olsen. I'm the founder and have been the CEO of the company ever since its inception back in 2017. So the usual disclaimer and going into what really matters. What is it actually we do? Well, we are delivering safe and effective monoamine modulation therapeutics for patients in need. We have 3 clinical programs in pain and sexual dysfunctions. We have clinical proof of concept data in 2 of the programs, and actually we have the next clinical readout coming up at the end of Q2 of this year, so very soon and very imminent. So Initiator Pharma is a company, we're headquartered in Copenhagen, and what's really important about this company, we actually fully finance for all the clinical stuff that we are doing now, all the readouts that we have promised, all the way into 24 and actually also beyond 24. We are listed on First North Stock Exchange in Stockholm and ever since 2001. We have about 4,000 shareholders and we have cornerstone shareholders in Dicot and Lund. So we are a very company dedicated to deliver results for our shareholders and also always thinking about how do we utilize the money best. And that you can see in the low burn we are having as a company. So our clinical stage pipeline consists of multiple assets. So here we are showing the overview of what we have. IP 2015 is actually used in what we call organic erectile dysfunction. That's a phase 2b study that I'll get back to. But the same active pharmaceutical ingredient, IP 2015, is also used in our pain setting, where we recently demonstrated efficacy in what we call a pain challenge model. But I'll not talk more about this today. Today I will focus on the erectile dysfunction. And then the program, the IP 2018, within what we call psychogenic ED, which is going to read out and we're going to get data at the end of this quarter and in the phase 2b study that I'll allude to a little bit further in this discussion here. So we have a proprietary clinical stage pipeline with multiple assets targeting significant unmet medical needs. So why is the modulation of monoamines of relevance for Initiator Pharma, but even more important, why is it relevant for patients? Well, monoamines are signal molecules that are used to signal involved in a lot of cascades and a lot of signaling involved in emotion, arousal, mood, sexual functions, and memory. It's a validated technology. It's been used for many years to treat depression and pain. But a lot of these approved medications for these things have primarily focused on what we call serotonin and norepinephrine, so some of the monoamine neurotransmitters. And actually too high levels of these can give significant undesirable side effects, such as sexual dysfunctions, toxicity in some of the cases, and also cardiovascular complications. So what we are advancing in Initiator Pharma is the 2nd generation of monoamine modulators, where we instead of focusing on serotonin and norepinephrine, we actually have a primary focus on dopamine and the beneficial effects of dopamine. Erectile dysfunction is a really big indication. We see that more than 400 million patients will suffer from this in 2025. And what we are targeting here, we're actually targeting the patients that do not respond to the current standard of care. So we are developing medications for the people that do not respond to the current therapies out there. So how do we treat the patients today? Well, when you go in and you suffer from erectile dysfunction, you go to the doctor and they will normally prescribe you the first line of medication, the PDE5 inhibitors, also known under the trade names of Viagra and Cialis. In some cases, these will work very nicely and you just go for a follow-up and you can continue getting your prescriptions. In some cases, we don't have a good effect of these compounds, and you go back and actually you try to have a higher dose of the PDE5 inhibitor, or try one of the other products, or try a combination of those. But they are all working with the same mechanism of action. So what we call the MOA is the same for all the PDE5 drugs. But we also know that about 35% of ED patients do not respond to this first line of medication. So these patients we are needing to treat. And we see in specific segments, such as people suffering from diabetes, this non-responder rate increases to 50%. So what can we do here? Well, what we can do is we can try to look at what else can we treat them with. We can also give them psychosexual therapy. We can try to change their lifestyle modifications and educate them on the use of PDE5s, making sure that they're taking them in the right fashion. But if there is no response, there's only one option, and that's actually going in with injectables. So injectables, when you inject yourself directly in the penis or insert a small tablet in the urine tract of the penis. And here you can get what we call a stimulation independent, or an erection independent of stimulation. So an erection, you can say that is there, but it's not happening for natural causes. So we actually see that there's a significant unmet medical need within these non-responders or patients that do not tolerate the PDE5 inhibitors in the market today. So the natural erection function is driven by stimulation. And the stimulation is that you see something nice, you're being touched, or you smell something nice, or you remember something nice. All this is processed into the brain, and it causes a massive release of dopamine. You can say the molecule that's telling you something's nice going to happen, you're expecting something nice. This is actually transmitted, this signal of dopamine, down through the spinal cords and leads to a production of nitric oxide that causes the dilation of the blood arteries. A dilation means opening up, and more blood can flow to the penile tissue, and thereby you get the erection. So what is it actually we do in this, you can say, with our drug? Well, it's not only us that knows that dopamine is important. This has actually been shown from other companies that previously have worked in the space of erectile dysfunction, developing, you can say, dopamine-like molecules to support this. And they have demonstrated that actually it works. However, they did not have a molecule that was safe to administrate. And that is exactly what we have in Initiator Pharma. On the more molecular level of what is actually going on, here I depicted a neuron in the brain, and upon the stimulation, we actually see there's release of dopamine into the synaptic cleft of the neurons, binding to the presynaptic receptors, and thereby starting the signal that leads to the production of nitric oxide, leading to this dilation. The way the signal is terminated again is by a reuptake of dopamine back into the neuron, so it's ready for the next excitation. And this transporter is doing that. We can actually inhibit with our compounds both the 2015 and the 2018. They have different, you can say, not MOAs, but they have different affinities for the different reuptake transporters. And this is also why we see them being advanced for the two indications that we're pursuing. So there's organic and the psychogenic erectile dysfunction. So again, what we are doing with the molecules we're actually strengthening the natural erection response in these patients, making sure that we actually get an erection that is dependent on being stimulated, something that's really nice for everyone. So what is going on? Well, we have two ongoing clinical trials in erectile dysfunction, and they're going to read out both in 2023. And the first one we talk about today is actually the phase 2A study in psychogenic ED, where we have recruited 24 patients, we have finished dosing them, and we are now awaiting the data that should come at the end of this quarter, so very imminent. Next for this study, of course, based on the data, we are going to design a phase 2B and finding out what is the right way to continue development on this. Of course, we have many options available to us at this time, and we have planned many ways to do this, but it all depends on the data we're going to see in the phase 2A in very imminent time here. So looking forward to see these results. And also again, remember, this is the first time we ever developed a medication for this segment of patients. So this is a proof of concept study where we go out and we look at many parameters. I'll get back to some of these at the next slide. In addition to that, we have the phase 2B study ongoing in 120 patients, which is the organic erectile dysfunction, which we call the intercourse study. And that one we are recruiting very well into, and we also expect to finish this study on time as previously announced. So you can say, what are we doing? Well, we're on the trajectory right now to change the paradigm for these ED non-responders, or the ones who do not tolerate the current therapy. So this is unique, and we are right there when we starting to get really exciting data in these programs. So just a little bit on the 2018 program in psychogenic ED. Again, remember this is a 3-way crossover study, high and low dose of 2018, and then a placebo. In this study, we're using the Regiscan apparatus. So here we are measuring on erection upon stimulation with an erotic movie. So you can say this is a similar study that we previously have shown data for with the 2015 program in organic erectile dysfunction. So we are looking forward to see the results here, and we're looking forward to interpret the outcome of these and finding out how do we actually develop the best trial going forward to help these patients in need. So really exciting times in the next couple of weeks, or next up to 5 weeks here. So turning to the 2015 program in the organic ED, what is it we are looking at? Remember again here, we have shown that this actually works in a phase 2A study, so again a Regiscan study, where we in 12 patients saw 25% responder rates in what we call moderate to severe ED patients. So here we have already shown that this actually works, and that's why we brought it into the phase 2B study that I'm going to present in a minute. And in the 2018, this is the first time we tested, but we are really, from the animal data we have done, we are really excited about showing the results coming out of this. So the study that we have ongoing right now in the 2015, in the phase 2B study, is conducted at 7 sites in the UK. And here again, it's the 3-arm study. It's not a crossover, so there's 3 independent arms with 40 patients in each. So we have a high and a low dose of IP 2015, and then we have the placebo control group. So what we are working with here is actually a study that is actually mimicking what we want to do in the pivotal phase 3 trial for the registration of the drug when we need to go to the market. And what is that? Well, we are going in and we are saying, okay, we try to use this as an on-demand. So the patient goes in and they actually administrated the compound in 4 subsequent weeks. So we get 4 dosing into this, and then they go into a post-trial visit and we follow up. We do multiple things in these clinical studies here. First of all, of course, it is a phase 2 study, so we still look at safety and tolerability and erectile dysfunction scores, which is the clinical endpoint for a later on pivotal trial. We also look at semen assessment and other PK/PD in the subgroups, trying to make sure that all the data we have, we can actually design the best possible way to go into a phase 3 study later on. So why will Initiator Pharma succeed? Well, we have multiple short-term upcoming value inflection points. We are maximizing the value of our very safe candidates that have shown broad clinical utility. We are targeting significant unmet medical needs in very commercial attractive markets. The financing is in place, so we don't need to raise money. We can complete all this and go forward. And then it's actually a very attractive risk-reward profile. We are working with validated drug targets with validated diseases and validated clinical endpoints. So this is why we will succeed. Thank you very much for your attention.
So, Klaus, it seems to be a countdown to the readouts in these clinical trials. How do you prepare as a company for that?
You can say we've known for a long time what the endpoints are going to be. So, of course, we have when we designed the trial, everything actually goes into the filing, and you can say you program the whole analysis of the data that's going to come out. So that has actually been done even before we started the trial. So when the protocols were closed down, it comes out into these, and then it's all processed. And then we get, you can say, final numbers. But it's not just numbers on one page. It's many, many hundreds of pages that is getting out. But we know what it is. And then there's a specific group that sits down and evaluates these data. And then, of course, within the MAR rules, it publishes as fast as we can the results of the study. But it's not a trivial study. It's not a yes and no. I think we have seen that before also in the phase 2A study. There's a lot of evaluations. We have many parameters that we are measuring on. And of course, all these can also give us input to the future development of the drug candidate.
And if we look beyond the results and to the market, it's a big market, but with some quite established treatments. What is the competitive situation like? You
can say the competitive space, of course, within ED in general is, of course, completely dominated by the PD-5 inhibitors. But we are actually aiming with our 2 drug candidates to go out and treat patients that do not respond or cannot tolerate the current therapies. And of course, that depends on if you are taking all the blood pressure lowering medications. A PD-5 inhibitor on top is not a good thing. And there's many, many other of these patients that do not tolerate or do not respond. So you can say, so we are in a unique position developing drugs actually for the 30 to 35% of the patient not responding. And this gives us a very unique position because we are the first drug for treating these patients that is still, strengthening the natural erection response. So it's not an injectable, it's an oral tablet that you take on demand when you want to be assisted in having an erection. So I see us as a very novel and in a very, very solid space going forward commercially.
I was curious about perhaps a stigma around these issues. Do you find that people are talking more about this? Is it easier to recruit patients than maybe it would have been in the past to this sort of study?
Yeah, I think that there's, of course, with the PD5 and Viagra in the States, where they completely, made a new paradigm change in this treatment and start talking about it. Actually, it's not been such a difficult talking about ED. That's something that a lot of men are willing to admit, or at least go to clinical sites and get help. I think in our trials, of course, we have been significantly hindered by the COVID situation, where we've seen delays that because of it's difficult to recruit patients, and being involved in clinical trials in hospitals during COVID was also nerve-wracking for some. So I see that in general, people are accepting that they can suffer from these things and they want to do something about it. They want to maintain their quality of life. And we see in studies that men are, and also women are sexually active for longer. So where you can say 25, 30 years ago, they stopped when they were in the late 50s. Now we see them being active all the way up into the 70s. And of course, one of the biggest denominators for getting ED is actually age. So of course, we'll see more patients and people are willing to get help with this to maintain their quality of life.
And finally, a classic question. If you were to come back here in a year, where would you hope that Initiator Pharma is then?
Yeah, I hope we stand with 2 really good clinical readouts. So now we have one coming in at the end of this quarter, and then we had the other one coming towards the end of the year. And this is really, really exciting. This is what we have been working for. This is what, ever since the inception of the company, we wanted to deliver clinical results. We have shown the first sign in the 2015 in the phase 2A that actually works in these patients, and now we're expanding the number and getting more patients in with a placebo control as well. So we're really excited with this. So I see us as a company developing with positive results, continuing the development of our drug candidates, and also being in a position to find partners to bring this forward to the market.
Well, we'll hope to see you here again, and thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much for hosting us. It's been a privilege.
Next presenter here today is Oskar Bosson, here to present BioArctic. The floor is yours, Oskar.
Thank you so much, and really great to be here again at the Life Science Summit, Life Spring Summit, I should say. So BioArctic is listed on the Stockholm Stock Exchange, large cap, and this is our disclaimer. So what's BioArctic? Well, BioArctic was founded 20 years ago by Professor Lars Landfelt and his friend Per Gällefors. And they had an idea of how to treat Alzheimer's disease. As you know, Alzheimer's disease is a very, very difficult disease to treat, and there's been many failures in the past decades in this disease. But they had an idea and they formed a company. And what's happened since then is that we've grown to a company not only focused on Alzheimer's disease, but as I will show in the following slide, also other neurodegenerative disorders. That is, disorders that break down the brain over time. And we do this from an office and labs based in Stockholm. We're close to 90 people now, growing quite quickly. Most of them are scientists working in the labs all day to develop new therapies. But we also are now building a commercial organization to be able to commercialize our first product that we hope will be available soon in the US. It actually is under an accelerated approval, but soon also in Europe, Japan, and other parts of the world. And we'll come back to that later on. But we hope to do this to help these huge patient groups who have an enormous need and where there are very limited treatment options today. So let me go in and show you a bit more of our pipeline. So this is our full pipeline. As you see, we're not a one-trick pony. We have several different projects, not only in Alzheimer's disease, but also in Parkinson's disease, in ALS, in Gaucher's disease, which is an enzyme replacement therapy. And we also have a project called BT, or Brain Transporter Technology. And let me go through this project a bit by bit. So in Alzheimer's disease, our foremost candidate is called lecanemab, or also Leqembi, which is the US brand name it's received after an accelerated approval earlier this year. That project and the backup project to that is partnered together with a company called Eisai. Eisai is a Japanese global pharmaceutical company who has a long history within Alzheimer's disease and oncology. And we've been partners with them for almost 20 years, 18 years, and still going strong, both with research projects, but also with this specific antibody project. We also have other projects within Alzheimer's disease because we think in the end, patients are going to need different types of treatments, and there's a vast need. So combination treatments will also be important for the future to be able to solve the riddle of Alzheimer's disease. And therefore, we are continuing to invest and research within Alzheimer's disease. These projects are both naked antibody projects and also linked with our brain transporter technology, which is a technology to help antibodies or other proteins come over the blood-brain barrier in the brain to be able to be more effective and possibly also safer. We also have a portfolio within Parkinson's disease, one project that's already been in phase 1 and is phase 2 ready. That project was previously partnered together with AbbVie, a big US company, but they handed it back to us last year for strategic reasons in their portfolio. And we're now looking into different options, either finding another partner to bring that project forward or investing in ourselves to increase the value before we find another partner. That would be then bringing it into phase 2 by ourselves. In that portfolio, we also have just a new project with our BT technology to improve safety and efficacy. Thirdly, in other neurodegenerative disorders, we have an ALS project. ALS, as you will know, is not a big amount of people get it every year, but it's a devastating disease for those who do. It slowly breaks down the body's muscle function, and in the end, many people die of suffocation. So we want to help these people, obviously, and we have a project that's moving very quickly forward based on the learnings we have both from the Alzheimer's disease projects we have and the Parkinson's disease projects we have. And it's going to be very interesting to see how that project moves forward. And then fourthly, we have the Gaucher's disease project, which is a disease where there are actually quite good treatments today. It's you lack an enzyme in the body, so you need an enzyme replacement therapy. But those therapies cannot cross the blood-brain barrier, and therefore the symptoms that you get from that disease that are linked to your brain cannot be treated, and they can be severe and deadly sometimes. So we're now trying to use already available enzyme replacement therapies and put them together with our brain transporter technology to be able to bring them across the blood-brain barrier and hopefully help these people. And then lastly, but not least, the brain transporter, which I now mentioned a number of times, is a totally new way of bringing in different proteins or biologics across the blood-brain barrier to help to get more treatment into the brain for these devastating diseases. As you might know, the blood-brain barrier is there to protect the brain from poisons or dangerous things to get into the brain and harm the brain, but it also makes it difficult for treatments to cross the blood-brain barrier. And that's what we're trying to do here. And hopefully that will, within all these areas, help the efficacy and possibly also the safety of the drugs that we're developing. And that is a project that we're very proud of, and we think actually that might be the next big thing for BioArctic. Okay, so let's look a bit at our partner Eisai, which we've been partnering with since 2005. And in 2007, they took a license on lecanemab. And so far, we've received close to 100 million. We still have roughly 100 million euros still to be received in milestone payment as this project progresses forward. The last milestone payments came in Q1 this year, approximately 35 million euros, and that was based on an approval in the US, but also the submissions in Japan and Europe. And the milestones that we still look forward to receiving is when we get an approval in Europe, we get an approval in Japan, and then also different sales and marketing milestones as this product hopefully reaches patients and gets sold on the market. We're very, very proud of the collaboration with Eisai, and we think they're a great partner who's really has a great focus on the patients just like we have. So one of the questions that we get when looking at lecanemab, you might know that lecanemab came in with positive phase 3 results in September, late September last year, and the results were astonishing. Across the board on the primary endpoint and all secondary endpoints in the phase 3 study, we had very high statistical significant results of slowing down the disease and helping the patients to keep more of their brains safe for a longer period of time than they would without treatment. And the actual number on the primary endpoint was that we reduced clinical decline by 27%. And some might say 27% is not a lot. So what does that actually mean? Well, it means, looking at a modeling study that was published earlier this year, that a patient, if you start dosing these patients early on in their disease, even before they're in Alzheimer's disease, when they have the prephase, which is called mild cognitive impairment, you can save up to 3 years of that patient and keep them in the early stages of their disease, where they can still take care of themselves, be at home, remember their loved ones, and function quite well by themselves. And we think 3 years is quite an effort, as this is the first disease-modifying treatment within Alzheimer's disease that could ever get full approval across the board, across the globe. So, and we're hoping that that's going to happen. And how is that going to happen? Well, this is currently what we think about the different regions where we've handed in, or actually our partner Eisai have handed in submissions. So in the US, we got an accelerated approval based on the phase 2 results already in January this year. So the product is available in the US, but there's a limited availability because there's still not reimbursement from Medicare, Medicaid, or CMS. So the authority that makes sure that the people on Medicare and Medicaid, which is approximately 85% of the population that has Alzheimer's disease, and they have said that they will give a broader reimbursement once there is a full approval in the US. And that is something that we hope will happen later this year. Already in July, on July 6th, the FDA has said that they will come back with a reply if this product will be approved or not. And before that, on 9th of June, their advisory committee will discuss lecanemab and give a recommendation to the of approval or not. And we're really looking forward to that. And we have good hopes for a good outcome there. In Japan, the product was submitted for approval in January, and there the process is ongoing, and our partner Eisai has said that they hope for an approval in Q3 this year. In Europe, also submitted in January this year, and there the process is a bit longer, and we expect a potential approval to come in the first quarter of next year. In China, the process is already ongoing, although the full application in China cannot be sent in until later this year when the Chinese part of the global phase 3 study is completed. But they've already now submitted the data that is available. And also there, we hope for a potential approval already in first quarter next year. And that would mean that we're the first fully approved disease-modifying treatment in Alzheimer's disease globally ever, which we hope and are looking forward to, and obviously would mean a lot to us as a company. So I just want to show this also to say that the project doesn't end just because you finalize the phase 3 study, because the phase 3 study actually also continues in a open label extension where almost all of the patients that were part and fulfilled the phase 3 study, up to 95% or so, have now continued into the open label extension study where all get lecanemab as a treatment. And they will be followed up going several years now by Eisai, and additional data will be presented from these studies in the years and congresses to come. And we're looking forward to that. And also in addition, we're not only looking at early Alzheimer's disease, which is where this phase 3 study was made, but Eisai is actually also looking at what happens if you find patients already before they develop symptoms, because Alzheimer's disease is a disease that develops over maybe 20 years before you actually get symptoms. And what if you find patients and treat them before the symptoms arise? Could you push the disease even further out? And that's what we're looking into in the AHEAD study. And we're looking forward to getting results there in the years to come as well. And then a question that we always get is what could this mean for us as a company? Well, there's a huge population around the world that needs disease-modifying treatments for Alzheimer's disease. And Eisai presented a couple of months ago this graph on this slide that state that they think in 3 years from now, or in 10 years from now, approximately 3 million people will be treated with treatments such as lecanemab, and that a majority of that would be lecanemab. And they expected then that would be around $10 billion US dollars globally in revenues. And for us, with the high single-digit royalties that we expect to get from Eisai, that could mean that this could be a blockbuster drug for BioArctic. And a blockbuster drug, that's a drug where you earn more than $1 billion per year. So that's our hope, and we're really looking forward to that. That would be the case, because obviously that goes right down to our bottom line, as we have no costs for development or marketing, etc. And then finally, looking forward, what we're looking forward to this year, most of it I've already said. There are a couple of congresses coming up, AAIC, CTAD, ADPD, which are the most important congresses, always new data coming out then, but also the approvals that I already mentioned, first in US, then in Japan, then in Europe and China. So with that, really great to be here. And we like to say that BioArctic, we really keep patients in mind. We're great science behind our projects, and we have great people that do them based on great science. So thank you so much.
Thank you for that presentation, Oskar. You touched upon the first question I have. This summer, you will get the information from FDA whether your Alzheimer's drug will receive full approval from the FDA or not. What will their decision mean for the company?
Well, as I said, it would be, it'd be a historic, not to say the least for patients, I think, because it would be the first time that patients would be able to get broad access to disease-modifying treatment in a disease that affects millions of people, but where there's nothing today. So that's the first thing. But then obviously for BioArctic, it would mean that we would start getting royalties, firstly in the US, but then hopefully in other countries as well, for this product. And that could mean a lot for the company because, these money we can invest in other parts of our portfolio and really grow the company. Our founders, their vision is that BioArctic will become the next big Swedish pharmaceutical company. And to do that, we need to invest, we need to grow. But I think in the end, it will also mean that we'll be able to give something back to our shareholders.
Your drug costs quite a lot per patient in the US. Will the public healthcare in Europe be able to afford the drug?
I think it's difficult to discuss the price in Europe until there is an approval and a price is set. And also it's our partner Eisai who has global rights who set the price. I should say about the way that Eisai did set the price in the US, I think they did it in a very good way because they've been totally transparent. They've shown all the things that they made, that they put in to the formula to sort of calculate what the price should be. And I think the actual price that they thought would be reasonable was about $37,000 a year. But they put the price much, much lower than that because they also have this ambition that everybody who has this disease and could, benefit from lecanemab should also get access to the treatment. And that's something I really support. So, but too early to talk about Europe until there is an approval.
When it comes to Alzheimer's, a challenge is to diagnose, like you said in the presentation here, and diagnose and early to start the treatment. How do you see this challenge?
I think actually there's a lot happening in the field right now. So not only, we're a Swedish company and we're basically in the lead globally when it comes to Alzheimer's disease, together with our partner Eisai. But the great thing is that Sweden is also in the lead when it comes to blood biomarkers, for example, which is a totally new way of diagnosing people, where you actually, within just a couple of years, you'll be able in clinical practice to take a blood sample of a patient and diagnose that patient to see if it has Alzheimer's disease or not, or if it has the prephases of Alzheimer's disease or not. And I think that combination that's happening now with us and other also coming with potential drugs to the market in combination with these blood biomarkers is going to be really, really interesting because you're going to be able to find patients early. And we believe that finding them early is the key to also giving them a better opportunity of benefiting from these drugs that are coming. So, right now there's a lot happening in the field, and we're really looking forward to being part of this development.
Thank you for coming here today and presenting BioArctic.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Aptahem, a biotech company developing novel treatments for acute inflammatory diseases like sepsis. And here to present the company is CEO Mikael Lindstam. Welcome, Mikael.
Thank you so much. And thank you all viewers to being here today. Well, I'm Mikael Lindstam, as said, and I'm the CEO of the company and also co-founder of it. We are public, so that means we are traded on a market, and that market is called Spotlight. If we then look what the mission of Aptahem is, we are looking at RNA-based therapeutics. Very important to remember. It's a new class of very interesting candidates for treatments of very severe sicknesses. And they're also called aptamers, which we're working with. And as we were just presented, we're looking into acute inflammatory sicknesses with high unmet need. We have a leading candidate in process, and it's in clinic at the moment. And it's our leading drug, of course, and we're looking at the critical care application for that one for patients that typically suffer from very severe conditions like sepsis and its subclass as well. So looking why we are doing this. Well, it is a huge problem with this kind of sicknesses or sickness syndromes like sepsis and their subconditions. If you look at this, just for Europe, almost 500,000 people die every year from sepsis or septic conditions. And not only the big suffering is, we have also a socioeconomic problem. Look at this, 30 billion in the middle there. Euros is the cost to take care of these conditions. Awful a lot of money. Of course, the personal suffering is, of course, number one, but that's something we want to address. And the solution is Aptahem, as I just mentioned. RNA drug, it triggers several situations in the septic condition as we can see it. And it is antithrombotic, anti-inflammatory, and we also seen a tissue repairing, tissue generation, if I could say like that, from our studies. And we see it also, it's safe at this point at the moment, and it's also in the clinic, as mentioned before. So firstly on to what happened last year actually, and what we have a view on last year is that we made several milestones to put a strong foundation to stand on for the clinical entrance of Aptahem. And that has been a lot of achievements during that year, and this is why I bring it up, that created this big fundament. And important to mention here that we increased the team with very good specialists and also get a fantastic regulatory package on place that we're now riding on in the clinical development. And last but not least, there is a data room complete, as we call it, but it's of course updated all the time. And this is a very important a tool for us when we are out meeting with potential partners. And this is very well filled data room with all our results that people can then study under confidentially agreements. And we'd like to have visitors there, of course. So currently, 2023, we started Clinical 1A in the end of last year, and it's running as we speak right now. We also made preparations for clinical phase 1B, which is a big milestones for us to perform. And that is kind of a proof of concept study in humans that are healthy individuals. We stimulate those and get an inflammatory response where we then can measure the very important clinical markers and get the fingerprint that will guide us into further studies up the clinical ladder. And of course, we are also looking at different indications to strengthen our case in discussions with potential partners and for ourselves, of course, especially when now we plan in front of phase 2 studies. It's important to have that because we get the question all the time, what are you planning for phase 2? So we have to have a readiness, a plan, what to do. So that's what we're working very much with. Another side of things we are approaching right now, we need opinion leaders, key opinion leaders, to support and talk for our product. Very important. And we are in the process of recruiting these at the moment. CMC development, what does it mean? Well, it is actually the manufacturing of our drug candidate. And we have then made several very good steps forward to cut cost and quality and get up the quality. But we are not stopping there. We are continuing with looking at new methods, potential new patent matter, and also to, of course, reduce the cost for the manufacturing, which is an important, or I would say crucial part for a potential partner to see that costs are within reasonable sphere. Because to make a product to the market, you need to have your upside and make some money on this. That's the crucial world we live in when you're seeking a partner and go to the market. Anyway, least here, or not least, but most, but last, scientific collaboration. It has been a key point in our development of Apta1, and actually been really important when we have evolved the mechanism of action for Apta1. So that's very important parts, and we still work with them, so we're looking forward to more results ahead of us. Well, I mentioned RNA therapeutic, and we have aptamers. I will not go through this, but the aptamers can be built by either an RNA segment or a DNA segment, and we have RNA segments. And if you look at the middle down, you see Lego pieces. That's more or less what's happening here when we're building a new therapeutic candidate around a medical target. Then we can build step by step, and that means we can really tailor the function of a candidate on this specific medical target, and targets that no one have been able to address before. So it's a fantastic method to approach new medical targets or getting more efficient targets. Well, anyway, so we're getting into the big business now with what Aptahem is doing, and Apta1 is actually going into the bloodstream. It's an IV solution, and in the bloodstream we have something called hemostasis. And hemostasis is the system to stabilize and balance everything happening in the body, inflammatory here and there. And here we have, if you look in the middle, the coagulation cascade, and there you see under the coagulation cascade thrombin. Thrombin is a coagulation factor, which is a key component at inflammatory response. It gets released only at an inflammatory response. And this is where Apta1 goes in to modulate, inhibit, etc., what we would like to call it. And then we inhibit the platelet activation, which is an important and a key feature to drive inflammatory process in the body. But more about that in another slide. And here you see the platelet on the left. It triggers a lot of different inflammatory situations here, and I will not go through it, but it's the center of driving this process, I can say. And here in this central driving process, we have Apta1. If you look at the left, you see thrombin again. We are back there. We go in and inhibit the activation of these platelets by docking in on only one point of thrombin, and it's the lower part that's called exocyte 2. We only dock in there. As a comparison for a typical anticoagulants, they will dock in on other sites. If you look at the Mickey Mouse ears there, you can see to the left and the right there are active site and exocyte 1. These usually get also inhibited by an anticoagulant, and the effect is that you overthrow the hemostasis a bit, and that means you get, for example, a bleeding effect, which we don't see with Apta1. By doing this, we get a very efficient inhibition of this platelet generation. We kind of stop that, and we have an immediate antithrombotic, anti-inflammatory response with a kept hemostasis. It's a fantastic combination, actually. So everything looks good so far. So we will continue with the next slide and look at who are the benefiters here. What are our stakeholders? Well, we have three parties with. We have the ICU physicians. They want to save lives. We have society. You remember the 30 billion euros per year. It's a huge money to save. And of course, the human suffering. We should not forget that, of course. And then a very important player for us, pharma industry partners that have an upside going into running a candidate like this into the market. We should not forget that. Very important. On the left side, you see again the big advantages. And while we are in the acute domain, please notice that fast acting, within 5-6 minutes, you have an effect, which is fantastic, and it's very direct and immediate effect, as I just said before, on the anti-inflammatory response and an anti-thrombotic response. We also have some candidates. We have our main candidate, as I just presented before. We have two more candidates, aptamers here, and they are protected in a patent family 1, which protects the structures. Then we have also another patent for Apta1 itself, which protects more or less any kind of therapeutic use you could think of. And all of these are almost in patent status. They are not pending. We have a few pending in patent family 2, but we can see them as global patent protection. Very strong and very important for the discussions with those pharma industry partners, I can tell you. That's a very valuable asset. Anyway, competition, yeah, there's always competition. I don't want to focus too much, but this is just a few other cases out there. And please notice the two middle columns, coagulation, inflammation. If you notice this, you see that the competition focuses on either this or that side of the events going on in the body. Look at Apta1 on the bottom. We have both sides, antithrombotic and anti-inflammation possibility here. And by that, we give up to a really good potential to cover much bigger patient population. And by that also have a wider market to reach. So we here have a best-in-class potential for sure. So, talking about what we're doing, I started a little where we are right now. Here's a tentative development and timelines. And as you notice here, we are right now in phase 1. If you look in the lower left corner there. And we are now gaining towards finalizing that and then preparing and enter the phase 1B, which I will come back to, we need to finance ahead of us. And if you see a little further ahead, you see phase 2. That phase 2 may be divided into more than one part. I'm just saying that. And if you notice on the upper part, we have a certain amount of milestones. And milestones is important just for your shareholders, the market in general, but also for those who are interested in us. There is a lot of things to tap into when it comes to show that we achieve. And we have to achieve so far. We have kept the timelines. We have delivered so far. So we are very happy with that. And the rest there, you see, we have a lot of ambition to drive the other candidates and the whole package around going into phase 2, which we're already now stepping up towards. Okay, team. This is the core team. We have people coming and going, but these are the solid stayers at the moment in the company. But this is to keep a good and economical viable situation with the company, that we take in experts when needed and then they go or not. But this is the fantastic team we're working with and a fantastic board to make things happening here. I'm very happy to work with all of this. As I mentioned, we need to look for some additional money to continue to keep the pace in our development and to continue to reach those milestones I just talked about. We have a share emission now that will be under 2 weeks from mid-June, 14 to 28 June. And this is, as I've been before talking about, to finance the 1B study, the most important milestone so far for the company. And we also prepare for phase 2, and there's other, of course, running course, business development, and so forth. And you would want to read more about Aptahem. We have here an excellent report from Analyst Group. Read more on their page. I'm just saying that here is a market value, and there is also a perceived value for the asset itself, and something we can make good use when we are meeting with partners. But read more about it. It's very interesting reading. And by that, I would like to say thank you so much.
Mikael, you talked about the rights issue that is coming up.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, you had a rights issue not too long ago, a few months ago. How has the market climate changed since that last rights issue?
I would say it changed quite dramatically. That's for sure. I mean, we see that it's a tough world at the moment, and people are holding on to the money, or people and organizations in general. So you really have to have a strong argument for your case, and sell it and present it in a very good and convincing way. And with Aptahem, I mean, we have a very good case. So, it's about the willingness of going into investments at the moment. And we are looking into all kinds of scenarios there, of course. So, but it's definitely changed. So, and we are looking at a share emission now to start soon. So
yeah. And speaking of this new share emission, how will those funds be allocated exactly?
Well, the funds, if fully subscribed, of course, will make us keep our speed and our tempo in the clinical development, and also the forwardness of the company. There's other things happening as well that we need to push. But the main thing here is to enable one beta study and get that milestone in the bag, of course. So that's the main thing. And otherwise, it's running cost, of course, business development. There's normal costs with patents and some, we have collaborations. So, but the main thing is one beta study that is on our focus. So that's our main goal. That's the lion part of the money will go for sure.
Well, and speaking of the 1B study, now that you are in phase 1, How has the industry reacted towards Aptahem reaching phase 1 and now moving into phase 1B? You said you're also looking for key opinion leaders. Tell me a little bit more about the market reaction there.
The market reaction have been good. I mean, if you look at the professional side of market reaction, and of course, getting into clinic, it's a milestone, and it is positive. But you know, most wants more, of course, and this is why we want to run this. That's one part we want to run a 1 beta study, as well as for ourselves de-risk the project as early as possible to see where we can go in the next steps and make a very lean and successful phase 2 and so on, of course. And the reaction in general making a 1 beta is that we have as an early proof of concept that you could ask for, even if it's not in patients. And that has been welcomed by many that I meet. So this is kind of consolidating that this is the right move to make. So this is why we're focusing on this. There are several reasons, and they are all good. Yeah.
Well, and finally, what are the main goals for Aptahem here in 2023 as you look forward to these next milestones?
Well, it's again, I have to revert to the 1 beta study, of course, but the preparation for phase 2 and already now knowing where we could tap into or go. And of course, there's a lot of regulatory work. I mentioned during my presentation here that it takes a lot of preparations, regulatory. And with the phase 2, it will be even more preparations, of course. So, and otherwise, we have our scientific collaborations. We have other things in preparation that could be seen as milestones for the company, as I just mentioned here some minutes ago. This is 1B focus, and of course business development. That's my main goal as a CEO of the company, to go out and look at. And there's a lot of interest and more diverse nowadays. And coming back from an event in US, specifically on oligos and RNA and aptamers and all that, seems that there are a very positive vibe in this field. And as chemical entities for therapeutics, I think there's a big belief, and the other markets have kind of been exhausted, let's say like that. So there's a lot of things happening. So I think we are in the right spot as a company running RNA therapeutics in case of the aptamers, I would say so. Yeah.
Sounds very good, and thank you so much for joining us for this event, and we look forward to seeing you at the next one.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to that.
And now we're very happy to introduce AdjuTec Pharma and CEO Björn Kleb. Welcome, Björn.
Thank you so much. And hello, welcome to this presentation of AdjuTec Pharma. My name is Björn Kleb. I'm CEO of the company, and we are developing drugs to fight antibiotic resistance. We see a definite unmet medical need in this area, and our lead compound APC-148 is phase 1 ready. Last resort antibiotics face resistance in the world on the global scale. These antibiotics are challenged by bacteria enzymes that destroy them. And the WHO has put our attention to priority bacteria listed here that kills millions of people every year. AdjuTec Pharma is committed to prioritize these bacteria in our development of new drugs. We also see that Big Pharma has appetite for new assets, in particular with new technology that can support their marketed products that are facing fierce resistance, new technology that will maintain their peak revenues and prolong patent expiry. AdjuTec Pharma was established in 2019. The founder is Professor Pål Rongve, and the company is a spin-out from the University of Oslo. The main shareholders in the company are the employees and 2 family offices in Norway. Bacteria defend themselves by producing resistant enzymes that destroy antibiotics. This means that the clinician has to increase the doses of antibiotic. However, you can only do that at the expense of patient side effects, and at the end of the day, the antibiotic is useless. So what to do? AdjuTec is developing enzyme inhibitors. By using these inhibitors, we can combine it with the antibiotic and restore the efficacy at normal doses. So our product is a combination of a well-known antibiotic combined with novel enzyme inhibitors that together is administered to the patients at the hospital for treatment of serious infections. It should be noted that APC-148 has no antibiotic effect by itself. Now take a look at this. It's a fantastic figure that shows you how effective this combination is. This is a highly resistant bacteria called Klebsiella, and you can kill that bacteria with huge amount of meropenem. However, these doses are way too much to give to a patient. By combining meropenem with APC-148, you can see you have a dramatic shift in the dose, and you can restore sensitivity to meropenem at a dose level beyond or below resistance. Now, this is one experiment, and we have done several of them in different bacteria, different meropenem-resistant bacteria, and we see similar results all over, and it's a very reassuring to show us that we have a robust technology that works across different strains. We have also documented APC-148 in safety studies in vitro and in vivo, and we have scaled up the production of our substance and is ongoing with the manufacturing of a drug product for embarking on our phase 1 program. APC-148 is phase 1 ready. We will document the safety of this compound in the clinical setting in healthy volunteers at Uppsala Clinical Trial Consultants phase 1 unit. The first study will document APC-148 by itself. The second phase 1 study will combine it with meropenem, and we will define a dose for the further clinical testing in phase 3. We anticipate to start recruitment of subjects end of this year, early next. AdjuTec has been in meetings with FDA and EMA to validate our preclinical and clinical plans. With the FDA, we were granted a Qualified Infectious Disease Program designation. It gives us priority review Fast Track designation, and a rolling review on filing our application. This will shorten the review time and is a great benefit to the company. We also have scheduled a meeting with the Medicinal Product Agency of Sweden in a meeting planned for June this year. At this meeting, we will discuss the clinical phase 1 protocols to be run later this year. This figure shows you the development program. It's a very compact and short program leading to filing in 2028. The green shows you the phase 1/2 program, including 150 volunteers and 60 patients. This is estimated to have a cost of about $20 million US, but in light of the difficult capital market today, we hope to raise an initial $5 million US to get started on this journey. You will see that altogether we have a clinical development program including approximately 1,000 patients and volunteers at the cost of approximately $80 to $90 million US. By the first investment of $20 million US, we estimate to reach the value inflection point ending at phase 2, and which will be a crucial milestone for the company. There are competitors out there, however, not many. As you see in this slide, there are very few in the clinical phase, and these different technologies combine different kinds of antibiotics with different enzyme inhibitors, meaning also that these products have a different positioning in the market. We have a small team, but we have delivered on all clinical milestones on time, even through the pandemic. Beside myself, Paul Rangwe is the founder. He has a PhD in medicinal chemistry and is an expert in IPR. Ragnar Hovland has also a PhD in medicinal chemistry, has experience from AstraZeneca and Norwegian biotechs in manufacturing. Björk Bolstad has run global clinical trial programs for international pharma and Norwegian biotechs and spent her last 6 years as a Norwegian representative at EMA. And we have a terrific, strong international advisory team covering all areas of interest in research and development, including infectious medicine, microbiology, toxicology, regulatory, and business development. We also have a very experienced board of director team, including and covering investments, manufacturing, and business development. AdjuTec is also very active on attracting soft funding. So far, we have attracted approximately $6 million US in non-dilutive funding, mainly through national and European institutions. However, we are looking aggressively into other sources of funding, including the US. So finally, we see APC-148 as a big business opportunity for you. We have shown that the product is highly effective in meropenem-resistant bacteria. We have shown that APC-148 is safe in the preclinical development and is a phase 1 ready compound. We have also shown that we have a regulatory pathway to the market through our discussions with FDA and EMA. And finally, we see also that international pharma needs these companion products together with their antibiotics to overcome increasing resistance. This will also, as mentioned, maintain their peak sales revenues and prolong their patent life of their products. So with these words, I think it will be interesting for you and us as a company to get in contact with you for any investments. And thank you for your attention.
So, Björn, I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about the difference between your technology and the competitor's technology.
Yes, bacteria produces different kinds of resistant enzymes. One type of enzymes are covered by marketed products. The other types, called metallo-beta-lactamases, are not. And we have now technology to inhibit those enzymes and thereby differentiating us quite a lot to marketed products. And I think this will give us a very nice competitive edge towards the other products.
And if we turn from the technology to the business model, what does that look like?
Well, as a small company, our business model would be to develop these products through phase 1 and 2, reaching an important value inflection point, and partner with international pharma. By doing this, we will have revenue that we can push back into our pipeline and co-develop further to a market introduction, and also hit the license for distribution of the product.
And as a final, quite important question, what investors are you looking for?
Typically, we would like to have investors now that can take us through phase 1/2 to this important milestone after phase 2. The investors should go together with existing investors to fund up $20 million, which is the estimated cost of this program.
Well, thank you so much for coming here today, Björn.
Well, thank you so much.
And to finish off this summit, we will listen to 4 short company pitches. First out is Suturion and CEO Pan Hermansson. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much, and thanks for the opportunity to present Suturion. Every year, about 30 million patients will have open abdominal surgery. Many of these patients will have complications related to the closure of the abdominal wall. This is unnecessary and avoidable in many senses, but it's also an avoidable cost for healthcare. The major complication that will occur of these type of issues is something called incisional hernia. Incisional hernia occurs about 1 to 2 years after surgery, but it needs to be corrected in a surgical way in many cases. But you will also have infections and burst abdomens, which is more acute and also needs surgical corrections. At Suturion, we have developed a device that will help and enable surgeons to close the abdominal wall in a much better way. Dr. Gabriel Berner, founder of Suturion and Swedish trauma surgeon, has made it his mission to help surgeons follow the clinical guidelines issued by the International Hernia Society in Europe and in the US. This device will help surgeons close the abdominal wall following the small bite technique, but also save time and save money while closing the abdominal wall. Early 2024, we will launch this device in Europe and in the US. We will use our distributor network in the US and the EU, while in the Nordics we will use a direct sales force. So far, Suturion has raised about 35 million Swedish kronor to take us through the prototype phase, the development phase, R&D, and clinical research. In 2023, we will raise an additional 60 million Swedish kronor to take us into the commercial phase and beyond. But to be able to do that, you need a team. And the team that has been recruited to support and help Suturion, you see here on the picture. It's a team with very much experience in the medical device industry and is very, very hardworking to make sure we meet the deadlines, follow regulations, meet customers on a daily basis to engage the market. If you want to know more about Suturion, please visit our website where we will find my contact details. Thank you.
Now I'm happy to welcome Stardots CEO Daniel Petrini. Welcome.
Thank you. My name is Daniel Petrini. I'm the founder and CEO of Stardots. We develop digital health platforms powered by advanced mathematical models. And the purpose is to increase the quality of life for patients and decrease costs to society. The company is a spin-off from Uppsala University. Our business idea is pretty simple. So we take a clinical need, a patient need, an algorithm, an idea, an approach, and develop into a fully fledged digital health platform that's regulatory approved and clinically validated. Then we approach the market together with a partner. That could be a life science company, for example, medtech company or big pharma. And the researcher can commercialize their ideas and reach out and do good, and the life science company can access new treatment methods. Our pipeline consists of a lot of different digital health platforms for many diseases, but our laser focus right now is for Parkinson's and neurology. And our Enliva platform consists of 2 medical device types. One is the digital biomarker, for example, dyskinesia, that measures the upper body limb movement disorder and classifies those. Another one is the eye movement, where we use an eye tracker to look at the eye motor control of the brain. And then we have treatment optimization, and that could be, for example, the DBS module, deep brain stimulation, where we try to optimize the signal going into the brain using pre-op and post-op images and the electrode type. And we also have an exciting collaboration with OnDoses regarding microtablets and trying to find your therapeutic window much better. So we try to increase the quality of life for Parkinson patients, and we're currently in clinical trials at 2 sites here in Sweden, and we have up to 4 clinics in the US that want to collaborate, co-develop, and clinically validate Anliva. I'm here today, and I want to seek out investors that shares our vision, researchers that want to commercialize their idea and reach out, and partners that want to approach the market together. So, thank you.
Our next pitch is Omnio Therapeutics, and here to present the company is CEO Ulrika Norin. Welcome, Ulrika.
Thank you. Omnio is an Umeå-based biotech company specializing in development of new therapeutics based on the body's own wound healing agent, plasminogen. We have a special focus on chronic ulcers and particularly diabetic foot ulcers, where we have seen in our investigator-led case studies that treatment with plasminogen can actually accelerate healing in these types of wounds. We are now developing a recombinant version of the plasminogen to ensure that we have a cost-effective and scalable production of our drug candidate. Diabetic foot ulcers is a highly crippling and severe complication in diabetic patients today. And it's estimated that up to 60 million people worldwide are actually suffering from a diabetic foot ulcers. And what many might not know is that it's actually the predominant cause of hospitalization and premature death among diabetics today. And there's a real lack of effective treatments that can actually accelerate the wound healing process in these patients. Of the over 800 products approved by the FDA today, only 6 are actually meant to treat and accelerate the wound healing process. We are focusing on plasminogen as it has been shown to be a key regulator in the wound healing process. Plasminogen is shown to accelerate wound healing in both rodents, pigs, and in man. And what really differentiates plasminogen from other products on the market is that it has been shown to be active throughout the wound healing process in all the different stages of the healing, so both the inflammatory, proliferative, and remodeling phase. It has also been shown to be anti-infective due to its pro-inflammatory actions, and infected wounds with multi-resistant bacteria such as MRSA has been actually shown to have an accelerated wound healing and reduction in bacterial load with plasminogen treatment. Omnio has during the past year established a new expression system to support the cost-effective and scalable production of our recombinant protein. And we recently completed the first initial efficacy studies in our wound healing models. We are now raising additional capital to support our clinical development program for use of plasminogen in diabetic foot ulcer patients. So we are currently raising capital to support our IND-enabling studies and our first-in-man clinical studies in patients with diabetic foot ulcers. If you'd like to hear more, don't hesitate to contact me, and thank you all for your attention.
And for our final pitch, we are joined by Uptake Bio and CEO Anki Malmborg-Hager. Welcome.
Thank you, Cecilia. I'm very happy to be here to introduce you to Uptake Bio. It's a company that we started last fall, and we are working with the cure of cancer. Even though immunotherapy has revolutionized cancer therapy, still about 10 million patients die from cancer each year. And this is due to the fact that approved drugs don't work on all people. The way we are working with this problem is radioimmunotherapy. This means that we have coupled a radioactive molecule to a target-seeking antibody. And the target that this antibody is seeking is abundant on quite a few cancers. It's expressed on the cancer cells and is also expressed on the stroma, which means that we are hitting the entire tumor. It's also a target that is upregulated when current drugs stop working. So who are we working with this? Well, we've gathered quite an experienced team. We have experience from starting up small companies, and we have also experience from developing radioimmunotherapeutic drugs. Furthermore, we have gathered with some of the best universities in the world and also cancer centers, and we have a lineup of very skilled service providers to help us along this journey. Like I said before, this target is abundant on quite a few cancers, and so far we have proven in 4 types of cancers that we can cure cancer-bearing mice. And for this reason, we are now ready to start large-scale production of our molecule, and we are raising 100 million Swedish crowns to be able to do that. So come join us on our journey.
And that concludes our program for the BioStock Life Science Spring Summit 2023. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed the company presentations and the expert insights. I'd like to say thank you again to our event partner Nasdaq for their support. And I would also like to remind you that we have more exciting events coming up in the fall, in September, and of course our BioStock Life Science Fall Summit in October. So make sure to subscribe to our newsletters to get all the updates on the upcoming programs. Thank you again for watching, and see you next time.